James Barnes.
Raise your right hand, please. Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Be seated. State your name first and last, and spell them for the court reporter.
James Barnes, Jamesbarnes.
All right, thank you.
Anderson, Your Honor.
You may.
Mr. Barnes, you actually go by Ed, is that right? Is that your, you have to answer out loud.
I would say not really. I mean, not since I was a
I've heard some
kid.
people call you Ed. You prefer
My
James?
mother.
His mother. Okay.
Okay, gotcha. Well, that's probably where I heard it. I'm not asking for your address, your current address, but what city do you live in?
Darden, Tennessee.
Okay, and how long have you lived in Darden?
About 14 years now.
Do you know a family by the name of the Bobo family that lived on Swan Johnson Road?
Yes, I live next door.
And when you lived next door, did that encompass a period of time in 2011?
Yeah.
And I asked you about the Bobo family in general. Do you know that the husband and father in the house was Dana Bobo?
Yes, ma'am.
And the mother was who?
Karen.
Karen. And do you know their children by any chance?
Clint and Holly.
Okay. You didn't go to school with them, did you?
No, ma'am.
Right. Was your relationship basically just knew them because they were your neighbors?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You didn't socialize with them? You weren't going back and forth grilling out or anything like that? No. I want to draw your attention to probably about 7:45 in the morning, approximately, on April the 13th of 2011, and ask whether you were home that morning.
Yes, ma'am.
And you said you lived next door to the Bobos. Is that next door like you can reach out and touch your neighbor, or is there some distance between the houses?
It's about 750 feet.
Okay. And who all lived at your house or on your property?
At the time, just me and my ex-wife, Cassie Bates.
Was there a child there as well?
Yes, ever. I'm sorry.
And was it a young child?
Yes.
A baby?
He
Toddler?
was 4, I think. 4 or 5.
And did your mother stay around there as well?
Yeah, I don't think she had moved off at the time yet.
So what does that mean? You don't think she had moved off?
Yes, she moved up here to Lawrence County.
Okay. So at that time, though, she
Yeah, I
was
think she was still in.
on the property.
Yeah.
Right.
But
And
she wasn't currently there that morning, though.
She was not?
No.
Okay. But was there 2 places that you could live there, like a trailer
Yes, ma'am.
and a house? Which one did you stay in with your ex-wife?
The trailer.
Couldn't hear you.
The trailer?
Okay. And when your mom, when she was there, did she stay in the house?
Yes.
And were they close to one another?
Yeah.
In addition to the trailer and the house, were there any other, buildings or there on your property, like a barn or a shed or anything?
Not
like
at the
that?
time, I don't think.
I'm sorry?
Not at the time.
Okay. And you're going to have to speak up because I'm having trouble hearing.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. Get in this big room and your voice kind of goes away. Were you working at the time?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you work?
For myself.
Doing what kind of work?
Construction contracting.
And were you in the middle of a project that April?
Yes.
And did that cause you to get up and leave normal time, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you and your ex-wife have one or more cars?
Just one.
Right, and because you had one car, does that mean y'all shared one? In other
Yeah.
words, you would take her places and
Yes, ma'am.
the child places? And what was your habit in terms of getting her the child to daycare?
We took him to different places, his grandmother's, to the daycare center in Parsons, a couple different places.
Well, on April the 13th, do you remember where he was going at that time?
Yeah, we were taking him to his grandmother's in Perry County.
His grandmother's in what county?
Perry County.
Perry County. Now, do you remember something that sort of interrupted the morning routine with getting you and your ex-wife and the child to the right places? Did something happen?
Yeah.
Would you tell the jury, because they want to hear it?
Okay. About 7:50, sometime like that, I heard some arguing going on next door, so I kind of looked through the trees to see what was going on and couldn't see anything at all. And she started screaming a little, and then she quit, and my girlfriend came outside, so I told her to get in the truck, and we went down and we sat at the end of the driveway for a few minutes and didn't see or hear anything, so we went ahead and went on to work.
All right. Before we go any further, were you out? You were outside when you first heard the screaming?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember what you heard or what words you heard?
It sounded like she was arguing with somebody, and she said stop. I said stop.
Stop. I said stop.
Yeah.
Okay. And at that, when you heard that, did it sound frantic to you, or did you just think someone was messing around?
It sounded like she was arguing with somebody she knew. I mean, it didn't sound nothing serious, really. I mean.
At that point?
Yeah.
Okay, did something happen, or did you hear additional screams later that made you actually walk to the tree line?
Yeah, she kind of cut out mid-scream, and it just didn't sound right. And my dogs were raising Cain, so I kind of went over there to see what was going on, and like I said, I couldn't see anything from where I was at.
How long did the screaming last?
Maybe a minute and a half. I mean.
And other than no and stop, did you hear, and you said her, did it sound like it was a female's voice?
Yeah.
Other than the no and the stop, did you hear any other words?
No.
Got an answer?
No.
Thank you. All right, now you said that you finished loading up your car with your ex-wife and the child, and that you went down your driveway, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And went to the base of the Bobo's driveway?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you actually turn up in the driveway?
Just barely. I just kind of pulled my truck up in there and stopped.
Okay, did you pull your truck up in it, but still aiming like you were going to be driving down the road, or did you pull it up facing the house?
Yeah, I actually pulled up facing the house.
Okay, and how long did you sit there?
About 2 or 3 minutes.
Did you hear anything else?
Nothing. We turned the engine off. There were no vehicles, no nothing.
So at that point, you didn't have anything to worry about, I guess.
I thought so.
I'm sorry?
I thought so.
Okay, and so then you continue on your way?
Well, we left, and we made it to Parsons, and which is about 4 or 5 minutes away. And me and my girlfriend just wouldn't drop it, so we called my mom and had her call Miss Karen.
You said you called your mom. Did you ask your mom whether or not she had heard anything?
Yeah, I asked her if she had heard them arguing earlier that morning.
And had she?
No.
And you said you had your mom ask your mom to call Miss Karen. Did you know where Miss Karen worked?
Yes.
Okay, and your mom used to work there as well?
Yes, and my previous ex-wife.
Okay. Your previous ex-wife.
Yeah.
So everybody coming to everybody. All right.
Number 2.
And after giving your mother or telling your mother that information, did you go on to work?
Yes.
And later on in the day, did you, I guess, receive some information that you thought was probably related to what you heard?
Yeah, the TBI said that they needed me to come home because they had to question me immediately.
You got to speak up.
The TBI told me that I had to come home because they had to question me immediately.
Okay. And did you do that?
Yes.
All right.
I got there at 11:50.
And I think it's pretty obvious from the fact that who you were with and the baby, and you dropped the baby off, took your ex-wife to work and were on the job, but you didn't have anything to do with what happened to Holly Bobo.
No, ma'am.
Right. Just you happened to have heard something, told your mom, and your mom called care of Bobo.
Yes.
Maybe fast forward may I approach, Your Honor? 2 photographs. Take a look at the first one. Do you recognize what that is?
Sort of.
What does it look like?
It's the side of their garage or their house. The side of their garage or their house.
All right. And does it show the edge of where your property might start, or the direction that your property would be in?
I think I'd be more over here.
Okay. Let me show you the second picture. You recognize this?
Yeah. I would be right here, right below those 2 pine trees.
All right. Your Honor, I'm going to ask that these 2 photographs be marked as the next numbered exhibit.
All right, it'd be exhibit 15 and 16.
I'm going to ask Mr. Ragland to put the first picture up on the screen, and if you'll still speak up, but I want you to tell the jury what you were telling me. What do you recognize the side of this building to be?
I think that's their garage.
Okay. And would your house be to the left or to the right?
Over there.
This way?
Yes,
My
ma'am.
pointer is?
Yes, to the right.
And what is between the 2 houses?
A pond?
A pond? And now I'm going to ask that the next exhibit be placed. And what do you recognize this to be?
A picture facing over towards my house.
All right, I'm going to pass you the pointer and ask if you can show the jury. It's that button. Look, right there.
Yeah.
If you can show the jury where your house is.
Well, my house is about right there, but when the event happened, I was standing in the tree line about right there, right below those 2 pine trees.
All right. And so from that distance, you said it's about 750 feet?
Somewhere in there.
It's quiet there.
Yeah.
And you were
Especially in the morning.
Right. And you were able to hear the screams from the area of the Bobo house?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said your dogs heard them too?
Yes. Oh, you ain't getting it bad.
One moment. Mr. Barnes, I don't have any more questions. The defense probably does.
All right, cross-examination, please.
Yes, sir.
Can we turn this off so that it shines so bright in my eyes? Mr. Barnes, my name is Jennifer Thompson, and I am representing Zach Adams in this case. He's the defendant. Now, I wanted to clarify a few things from your testimony. Maybe I couldn't hear you. You're somewhat soft-spoken.
I'm sorry.
Or maybe I misunderstood, but in fact, your mother was she was at your house that morning, or on the property that morning, wasn't she?
Yeah, she had left pretty early that morning.
But she was, well, first let me just go through. You gave multiple statements to the police and different law enforcement agency over time, didn't you?
Yes.
Matter of fact, you were interviewed that very same day that Holly disappeared, April the 13th, weren't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you'd agree with me that your memory and your statement that you gave that morning is probably the most accurate of all the statements, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Because it was so fresh in time to the incident. Okay. And in that statement, you agreed that it was around 7:45 that you were loading tools into your pickup truck.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what kind of truck did you have on that day?
A really old 87 F-150.
Okay, and what color was it?
Black.
Okay. And it had space in the truck for the car seat, you and your wife.
Yes.
Okay. And it was when you were outside when you're loading these tools in the truck, weren't you?
Yes, ma'am.
And it's while you were loading the tools in the truck that you began to hear a girl screaming.
Yes.
Okay. And it sounded like it was coming from the direction of the neighbor's house.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And your first thought was it was someone was playing or chasing a girl around.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And maybe even that they had a snake because of the way that the girl was screaming.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the girl was screaming, "Stop, stop, don't, don't." Is that correct? Okay. And when you heard this, you walked a little closer to the property and the tree line, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You looked through the trees, but you did not see anything at the time.
Nothing.
And the screaming seemed to last for just 1 or 2 minutes. Sometime after the screaming stopped, your ex-wife, Cassie Bates, came outside. Isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am.
She got in your truck, and you asked her if she had heard screams.
Yes.
And she said no. And you started to leave. That's when you left.
The witness didn't answer that question.
I'm sorry. I think you nodded your head.
I said yes.
Okay. She said no, and you answered.
What did I say to Cassie?
Oh, okay, strike that.
Is that what you're asking me?
I just wanted you to repeat your last answer. I think your last answer was no.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
Okay.
Could you please repeat it?
That's where it gets confusing. She entered the truck. You asked her if she had heard anything, and she answered.
No, she didn't hear anything.
Correct. And there were 2 different ways that you could have taken off that morning to go to drop your stepson off at daycare, weren't there?
Yes, ma'am.
One way was a direction away from the Bobo home, and one way was where you would pass the Bobo home. Is that
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
And usually you took the other direction away from the Bobo home, didn't you?
Yeah, because it's a gravel road and
Right.
junky.
But because of what you had heard that morning, and it was so unusual, you decided to change your normal course of behavior, didn't you?
Immediately.
Okay. Because after the way that your dogs, I mean your animals there around you, even reacted to the screams they were hearing, didn't they?
Yes, ma'am.
Matter of fact, they put their ears back and they kind of cowered down, didn't they?
Yes.
And that meant something to you too also, didn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So you decided you would drive past the Bobo house.
Yes, ma'am.
And when you drove past the Bobo house, you slowed down to look, didn't you?
And I pulled in their driveway.
Pulled in their driveway and paused for a few minutes.
Turned the engine off.
What?
I turned the engine off.
Okay. Turn
So
the
that way I
engine
could
off.
hear anybody. There was nothing.
Because had you heard anybody at that moment, you would have gone and further investigated, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah.
And even when you heard someone screaming, you did not ever hear this woman that was screaming yell help, did you?
No, ma'am.
If you'd have heard somebody yell help, you would have gone to help, wouldn't you have?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so you heard nothing when you paused in the driveway and turned off the engine, did you?
Nothing.
And there were no cars in the driveway?
Nothing.
Okay. And from the time that you were in your driveway, you didn't see any cars pass your house, did you?
No, absolutely nobody came out, even going the opposite direction from their house, because I kept an eye on the place from the time that I went from the place where I was getting the tools till I got in the vehicle to go down there.
Okay. And so after you pass the Bobo's house, there's not another street between your house and the Bobo house, is there?
No, ma'am.
I mean, there's no T-bone or cross street or anything?
No.
And after you pass the Bobo's house, there's a small logging road on the left-hand side as you're driving north.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did you look down that logging road?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see anything?
Nothing.
And did you see any cars on the right-hand side of the road?
No.
Okay. And then just a little further down, you get to a stop sign, don't you? Does that area there, that road down there, have a name?
Five Forks
Five
is what
Forks
they call
Road.
it.
Okay. And did you see any cars there?
No, ma'am.
And that's where you turned and you went on your way towards Perry County, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. Through Parsons.
Through Parsons, yes. And then, but it's when you got to the Five Forks corner that you stopped and made a telephone call, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Because even though you had seen nothing and you had heard nothing, you were still so disturbed by the screaming that you wanted to let your mother know about it.
Yeah, it didn't seem right.
And so you called your mother and asked her to call Karen Bobo.
Yes, ma'am.
And you used a cell phone that morning to make that call.
Yeah.
And are you aware that that call was made at 7:47?
I didn't know what time it was.
If your cell phone records show that it was made at 7:47, would that be accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say so.
Because I think initially, at some point, you said that you had heard that screaming sometime between 7:40 and 7:45 was when you heard the initial screams.
I was outside at the time. I don't know exactly what time it was. I went outside about 7:15 to start loading up. I mean,
Okay.
the best I can do is give you a guess of what time it was.
Sure.
I mean,
Because you weren't wearing a watch, you weren't keeping
No.
track of time. Okay. And at some point later that morning, your mother called you and told you to return home.
well, actually, I had numerous messages from her and the TBI and several
Okay.
others indicating that I had to come home for questioning.
Okay, and so you left and you came back to your house.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I know you said you heard somebody yelling, "Stop, stop, don't," but at some point you even acknowledged that you had heard the person yelling, "Stop, God damn it, stop it." Do you remember that?
When it started escalating towards the end, yes.
So there were actually some curse words that were coming out.
One.
Okay. And so eventually you were questioned multiple times by the TBI and the FBI over this incident, weren't you?
Yes, ma'am.
At some point you became a prime suspect in this matter, didn't
Yes,
you?
ma'am.
And one of the reasons that they didn't believe you is because they thought that you...
I'm going to object about how can he possibly know why
Why they didn't believe him. Improper question,
Well-
objection sustained.
Okay. Was there an issue that they questioned about your testimony or your version of the story?
And I'm going to object to hearsay if she's asking what a TBI agent questioned him about.
Well, questions, I think, are
Objection
specifically...
sustained.
They're excluded by the hearsay rule.
Objection abstained. Sustained.
So,
If it helps you any, I don't know why.
what?
Said if it helps you any, I don't know why anyway.
Okay. Okay.
You can ask 4 different ways.
But you were brought in, and actually at some point you were questioned for hours.
Several times.
Several times in a small room.
Yes, ma'am.
And the TBI and the FBI continually came to your house and to your mother's house.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember that dogs that day, you were tracking Holly's scent over to your house?
With my dogs?
No, other tracking dogs
Oh,
followed
yes,
a
ma'am.
scent to your house that day.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When the whole time, you were not involved in the disappearance of Holly Bobo, were you?
No, ma'am.
And you were simply trying to be a good Samaritan by calling the neighbor, weren't you?
Yes, ma'am.
And you heard someone that you thought sounded like they were in trouble and you were trying to help them, weren't you?
Yes.
Okay. The TBI would eventually had you write out a statement, didn't they?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In this statement, you wrote, "My name is James Barnes. I have provided a
I'm
written..."
going to object. That's not an improper way to ask a question. We don't read statements.
Unless it's prior inconsistent or something like that, it's not used.
Well, I can ask him if these statements are true. I'd like to ask you if these things are true. To the
All right,
best of
and
your
don't go with the statement. Just ask him if it's true.
I
Yes.
thought I already had to sign something to that effect,
Okay.
saying that my statement was true under penalty of law.
Wait.
If the
If
witness,
there's an objection, you need to just hold on for a minute, okay? Because I might not
sorry.
allow the question, I might, okay?
Sorry.
Thank you.
what I was going to say is she said she wanted to know if these things are true. She can ask him any question. If he answers inconsistently,
That's what I just said, okay? Let's move on.
You recognize the scream that morning as being that of a young girl.
Yes, ma'am.
You had met Holly before.
Yes, ma'am.
You recognized it as what you thought was Holly's voice.
Yes, ma'am.
You were outside by yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
Cassie Bates was still inside.
Yes, ma'am.
Your mother, Kathy Wise, was at home also.
No, she wasn't home at the time.
She was in her home.
No.
So your mother, Cassie Bates, your mother, Kathy Wise, you're now saying she was not at home?
I don't think she was at home.
Where do you think now she was?
I think she had went to town for something.
Okay.
If she had been home, she'd have been out there helping me load up tools. I know her.
Now, she didn't live in town, did she?
No.
Okay. She lived on the property?
Between there and her new place in Lawrenceburg.
Okay. Okay. When she lived on the property, did she live in the barn behind your house?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now I'd like to ask about a prior inconsistent statement, Your Honor.
Hey, all right. Does it follow what you just asked him?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you may.
So, when you made your written statement, didn't you in fact say that my mother, Kathy Wise, was in her home, the barn behind my house?
I don't know what I put in the written statement. That was 6 years ago, but if she was home and I said she was in there, then she may have been, but I don't recall her being home.
Okay, so now it's just a fuzzy memory for you.
That's what 7 years does.
Yes. And just in case not everybody knows, Perry County is east of Parsons, Tennessee, isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am, the next county over.
Towards the Tennessee River.
Yes.
Do you remember what your telephone number was at the time?
No.
Okay. At some point, things grew very uncomfortable between your family and the Bobo family, didn't they?
Yes.
And it grew uncomfortable between your mother and the Bobo family, didn't it?
Yes.
Do you still live on that property?
Yes.
Okay. Did your mother live there anymore?
No.
Okay. And you said earlier she'd moved to Lawrence County.
She was in the process of it.
Okay.
I'm not sure what part of the process she was at that time. I don't remember. Like I said, it's been a long time ago.
Okay. If I could have one. Would it be accurate to say that for over a year the TBI continually came around your house to attempt to get you to confess?
Yes, ma'am.
No further questions.
Anything else further direct?
Very briefly.
Okay.
Would it also be accurate to say that you didn't have anything to do with it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. One last question about the series of questions about how you perceived the screams. They were frightening enough to you that when you heard them or when it stopped, you actually got a cold chill.
Oh, yeah. My hair stood up everywhere, and I looked around, and every one of my dogs, they were on the ground, their ears were up. And Cassie walked outside right then, and I just told her, I screamed at her, I said, get in the truck now. And she thought she'd done something wrong or something.
It was that...
But we got down there within about 45 seconds.
it was that impactful to you, though.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all, Your Honor.
Anything else?
Nothing further.
All right. You can step down, Mr. Barnes. You're free to be excused or you remain in the courtroom. Call your next.
Karen Bobo.
Karen Bobo. Oh, she's here. I forgot she's your representative. Raise your right hand, please. Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Be seated. State your name for the record and spell first and last.
Karen Bobo, K-A-R-E-N-B-O-B-O.
Let me see counsel up here just a minute. One second. I want to close the bar door first, maybe. I think everybody already knew what I mentioned, but did you spell your name?
I did, sir.
Was it, is it okay?
It is okay.
Thank you.
Just breathe. Earlier, you were in the court, present in court earlier when Dana Bobo testified,
Yes, ma'am.
and that's your husband.
It is.
How long ago were you married?
35 years.
You have children together?
2 children, Clint and Holly.
And Holly's date of birth?
10/12/90.
And the whole time that she was alive, where did you live? And you also, well, I ask you to speak up. I know it's hard, but I want everybody over here to be able to hear, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Had Holly ever moved out of the house, or did she, once she graduated from high school and started college, did she stay in your house?
Yes, she had always stayed in our house. She never moved out.
There's been some mention today about her being in a nursing program. So let me ask you, when did she graduate from high school?
She graduated in '09.
Did she go to college first?
She did. She actually took a couple classes in high school, college classes, and then after graduating high school, she went to college for a year.
Where did she go?
Jackson State, Lexington campus.
And after that year, did she transfer to a different program?
She did. It was a bridging program, a 12-month program that bridged into the RN program, and they were a hand-picked, I believe, 25, and they called and asked her if she would be in that program.
Okay, and where did she take classes after her first year at Jackson?
The nursing class was at UT Martin Parsons campus,
And how far away from your home was this UT Martin Parsons?
about 6 miles.
Was it a rigorous program?
Very rigorous.
How many days a week did Holly go to school?
Holly went to school 4 days a week. She was off on Friday.
How did she spend her Fridays?
She spent her Fridays house cleaning. She would usually get up pretty early, clean the house so she could have the afternoon to do something else.
What were Dana's hours back in that time?
To the best of my memory, he probably left home around 5:30 and got home around 5:30 or 6 in the afternoon.
And he was working for McKinsey Tree Service?
Yes, ma'am.
And what about you? How did you spend your days?
I spent my day teaching 2nd grade at Scottsdale Elementary School. I usually tried, my goal was always to leave at by 7 o'clock, and I got home around 3:30 every day.
And what about Clint?
Clint was working part-time and going to school at UT Martin in Martin 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Your husband said that he was a social worker. Was he already a social worker at that time?
No, ma'am, he was working at the nursing home,
Studying to be what?
studying to be a social worker.
So is it fair to say that during the day, Monday through Friday, except when Holly was off on Fridays, generally, was everybody gone?
Yes, ma'am.
Who left first most days, Holly or Clint?
Tuesdays and Thursdays, Clint left early, like at 6 o'clock. I think his first class was at 8 at Martin. And then on Monday and Wednesday, I believe Holly left first.
And this routine, this family life, was that pretty, did it just repeat itself week after week? You guys
Yes,
going to
ma'am.
work, Holly going to school, Clint doing both?
Yes, ma'am. Very routine.
You saw me put a picture of a young lady up on the overhead earlier. Who is that?
That's my daughter, Holly.
Now, I want to draw your attention April 13th of 2011, okay? And ask, do you remember what day of the week that was?
Wednesday.
And was that Wednesday very much like every other Wednesday in your household?
It was.
Do you remember if Holly had anything special going on in school?
When I got up that morning, Holly's door was closed, Clint's door was open, so I closed his door. He snores, plus he had a surround sound. I think the television was on in the surround sound, so I closed his door and opened hers. And she was sitting on the bed studying. I think she told me she'd been up since 4:30 that morning studying. So I went on about my business, getting ready. And then later, I packed her lunch, and then she asked me to get her some muffins.
Let me stop you here.
Yes, ma'am.
So, this conversation that you had with her when she was sitting on her bed, did she seem herself?
Yes, ma'am.
Everything was normal.
Everything was very normal.
And you said she was studying for a test?
She was. They had a test just about every day, but depending on what they were studying as to how much she had to study extra. So it must have been something pretty hard.
Because she was already up.
Because she was already up.
Okay, you said you went on about your business. At some point, did Holly leave her bedroom and go somewhere else in the house?
She did. She left her bedroom and evidently had taken a shower and put her clothes on.
And why do you say that?
Because when I left, she was sitting at the dining room table studying. And she asked me, could I grab her some muffins, because I usually fixed muffins every other morning. And I remember telling her yes, and I got them out of the refrigerator and put them in the microwave. And I said, just heat them up. I'm in a hurry, gotta go.
You said you made her lunch. What'd you do with that?
I think I stuck it back in the refrigerator. So that's what I did every morning. Made her lunch and then stuck it back in the fridge.
And did you notice or see lunch/gas money that had been left somewhere in the kitchen by your husband?
Yes, at some point in time, I picked up the $20 bill, and I guess Holly must have been in the shower, because I went into her bedroom and I was afraid she would forget it, because that's just how I was, always doing everything, making sure nobody forgot anything. So I took the money and I actually put it in her wallet, in her purse.
And did you tell her goodbye?
I did. Told her goodbye and I loved her.
Where was she when you told her that?
She was sitting at the dining room table studying.
Do you remember what time you left for work?
Around 7.
And when you left, what door did you go out of?
I went out the back door, the door I always used.
Now, there have been some pictures of the attached carport. Did you see those pictures today?
I did.
Is that the area that you parked your car in?
Yes, ma'am.
If we are standing outside of the carport looking at the cars, who parked where?
Holly parked on this side.
Left or right? If we're looking at the rear of the cars.
If you're looking at the rear of the cars, hers would be on the left and mine would be on the right. So I had to walk past her car to get to my car.
Is her car there?
Her car was there.
Everything seemed normal in your garage or in your carport?
Yes.
Did you see or hear anything that concerns you?
No.
You said you left approximately 7. When you got there, how long did it take you to get to school?
It takes me about 25 minutes.
Did you do anything special while you were in the car driving?
I talked to a friend of mine, Tina Cruz, on the phone.
And frankly, was that something you did nearly every day?
Yes. She had a long drive, I had a long drive, so we usually talked every morning on the way to school.
And did any text or any calls come in while you were talking to Tina that interrupted that conversation?
Yes, Holly tried to call me.
Did you hang up with Tina, or did you not pick up with Holly?
I can't remember if I waited till I got to school to call Holly and pulled in the parking lot, or if I let Tina go and talk to Holly then.
But you talked to Holly on the phone after you left your house about the time you were getting to school?
Yes,
Okay. Did you talk to Holly once or more than once?
more than once.
And what in the world were you all talking about since she had a test and it was time for you to go to work?
Well, she told me that she had spoken with Drew. She had talked to Drew on the phone, and that he was on my mom's property turkey hunting, and he had run into my cousin's son, and that they had questioned him and wanted to know who gave him permission to hunt.
So he had permission to hunt, right?
He did. It was just kind of a blanket permission.
So based on that conversation, did you make some other calls, reach out, call your mother, do that kind of thing?
Yes, I don't remember in which order, but I called Drew and asked him, was everything okay? And he told me that Bo had asked him about who gave him permission. He told him that Holly's grandmother, and told him that he was Holly's boyfriend. And then I called my mom and told her that Drew was over there hunting. And then I called Holly back and told her everything was okay.
And when you called her back to say everything was okay, did you know at that time whether she was still at home, or did you think she had left for school?
No, she was still, I think she was still at home.
I mean, that's not, you didn't ask her.
I didn't ask her, no. But by the timing, I thought she was still at home.
So did all of these sort of back and forth calls with your mom and Holly and Drew, did that cause you to be a minute late to get into your classroom or to get into school?
Yes, it did. And we're not supposed to have our cell phones with us. So I left my phone in my room and I walked to the cafeteria where my students already were, and the other second grade teacher was watching both classes.
And so the other teacher had actually had to carry your kids to the cafeteria.
Yes.
Right. And you said you left your phone in your room.
Yes.
Your classroom.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you remember about what time breakfast at Scotts Hill, is it elementary?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Happened, like what time was that when you were in the cafeteria with the kids?
We usually went to breakfast, I think about 7:35 or 7:40, somewhere around there.
So they were already there and you walked in?
Yes.
Nevertheless, was it before 8?
Yes, ma'am.
Was your plan that you would be the one to take the kids back to the classroom?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Did you do that?
No.
Tell the jury what happened.
I hadn't been in the cafeteria very long, and the secretary of the school came to the cafeteria, and she said that the neighbor had called and said she didn't want to alarm me, but she thought she heard screams coming from the house. So that's not a phone call that I got every day. I'd never gotten a phone call like that, so I almost instantly got into a panic at that point, walking pretty fast back to in the school, because our cafeteria is outside the school. So I go back inside the building, and I went and used the phone, and I called.
Where did you go? You said you go back in the building. Where? To your room?
To the library.
Okay.
To the closest phone I could get to, which was normally would have been the office phone, but I must have looked over there and there were parents bringing their kids in, so that's why I used the library phone. But I called Clint and I asked my son Clint what's going on. And he said, did Holly not have school today? And I said, yes, why? And he said, well, I think she's out here with Drew. And I don't know what made me say it. This instant panic came over me, and I said, that's not Drew. Call all the neighbors, I think is what I said. And then I ran over to the office, and I called 911. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I remember they said it was Henderson County, and we live in Decatur County, so I hung up. I think I fell on the floor at that point. And I guess I called Clint back, but I don't really remember now if it was from the library phone or the office phone, and he was still talking about, was Holly not going to school today when she turkey hunting with Drew? And I said, that's not Drew. And at some point I said, get a gun and shoot him. And I remember Clint saying, you want me to shoot Drew? And then a friend of mine and co-worker Terry Bromley, I think she pulled me up out of the floor, and she was pulling me to her. We were trying to get to her vehicle, and as soon as we got to her vehicle, I called 911 again, and I got Decatur County that time.
So Terry Bromley is a friend and a co-worker?
Friend, co-worker, used to be Holly's basketball coach.
So somebody that had known Holly for...
Since she was in 6th grade, maybe.
You said she, being Miss Bromley, was pulling you towards where?
Toward the gym. She parked in front of the gym.
So she was going to take you?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you in any shape to drive at that point?
No,
Did you have your cell phone?
I didn't,
Because
it was down in my room.
did Terry start heading back towards your house?
Yes,
And you said 25 minutes if you're not speaking.
yes, ma'am.
And you made another phone call. Whose phone did you use?
Terry's.
And who did you call?
I called 911 with her phone.
And you got somebody that time on the phone?
I did.
Look at a disc and see if you can tell us if you recognize it or not.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you recognize this disc as opposed to every other disc?
Because I initialed it.
What is it?
It's my 911 call.
Your Honor, ask that we mark this as the next numbered exhibit.
We are 17. Moved into evidence exhibit 17.
You said you initialed it. Did you initial it after listening?
Yes, ma'am.
And does this truly reflect what you told the 911 operator on your way back home?
Yes, ma'am.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Is that where you live? Okay, you live Karen? Okay, dude. Okay, I got officers on the way right now, okay, Karen? They're on their way, sweetie, right now. This is Robert. They're on their way, sweetie. I got everybody on their way right now already. Do we know? Say Clint seen them? Are they in a vehicle? Okay. Okay. All right. I've got officers in there, and I'm gonna let them know. Okay.
Please get everybody out there.
Okay. They're on their way, sweetie. They're on their way right now. Okay, and this is going, hey, what's your daughter's name, Miss Karen? Okay, Miss Holly. Okay, and she's, what, 16, 17?
She's 20.
Okay, she's 20. All right. 20-year-old female, blonde hair. Yeah, male therapy, full camouflage. Drug her off through the woods. That's gonna be behind your house here?
Yeah.
Okay, it's gonna be right there at their house. Yeah. Okay, I got them on the way, honey. Everybody is on the way.
Did Terry drive you on home?
Yes, she did.
When you got there, what was going on at the house?
I think I remember seeing two. I remember seeing Jeremy Pratt because I knew him. He went to church with us.
Who was that?
He was a police officer for Decatur County. And he told me I couldn't go around to the back of the house. I couldn't go in the woods. I remember just slinging him off on me, and I took off running. Terry and I both took off running. I do remember seeing Clint when I got there. I think he was standing out beside the cop car. I remember seeing Kathy Wise, my neighbor. I remember her saying, "You can't go around to the back of the house." And I think I fell down then too.
As the morning wore on, did more people come?
More people came.
Did more law enforcement come?
They did.
Do you have any idea how many people were out there at your house, in the yard, the roads, woods?
I don't know.
At some point that day, were you asked to leave your house so that law enforcement could do some work there?
Sometime, I think it was around lunch maybe.
Did y'all do that?
We did.
How long was it before you went back to the house?
Friday night. That was on Wednesday, and we went back and got some clothes. Maybe the next day. But we didn't stay at our house again until late that Friday night.
You said you took off running through the woods with Terry. What were you doing? What were you trying to do?
I was just trying to find Holly.
And is that what you devoted yourself to from that moment forward?
Yes, ma'am.
Over the next days and weeks, did your life change dramatically from what it was when you got up on that Wednesday morning?
It did. It went from just a average family, very routine, to it was day and night, and that's about it. We didn't keep up with the time. We were just looking for Holly, and our house was full of people once we got back home, and then I started keeping notebooks and keeping notes, and we'd turn all the tips and leads in, but then we'd also follow up on them too. And we went to people's homes, questioned them, and then the people weren't home, and we thought a building looked abandoned or something. We would just go in, and we were just constantly searching day and night.
Not just you, though, right?
No, it was
A lot of people.
a lot of people. I don't think my sister or some of my teacher friends went back to school the rest of that year. And then we searched all summer, and then I didn't go to work. I didn't go back that whole next year.
You said you didn't go back. You didn't go back to work.
No, I didn't. My mom moved in with us and lived with us because I wasn't capable of taking care of myself, basically.
I want to pass you a stack of 8 pictures. Keep them in this order and look at them and tell me when you're finished, okay? Do you recognize what is in each of those pictures?
Yes, ma'am.
What do they show?
They show the inside of our house.
Just parts of the inside of your house or all of it?
No, just parts of it.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask that those be marked as the next numbered exhibits.
18 through, what's 8?
Where do we leave off? 18? 26.
18 through 26, okay.
We can begin with number... Let's begin with number 18. I want you to look over your left shoulder. You may need to do the lights a little bit, because these are...
No, they're out in the hallway. I told her yesterday to get a clear mark through it. I think it is.
Looking at, while they're fixing the lights, looking at what's been marked as Exhibit 18, what is the jury looking at right in this room?
That's our living room.
And this door?
That's our front door.
All right, so if you come in the front door, you walk directly into the living room?
Yes.
What is this open door in the rear
That's
or the left?
mine and Dana's bedroom.
On the other side of this wall is what? If you were to go around?
That's our bedroom and then bathroom and closet.
Where is the carport in relation to this room?
Behind at the back, going that way at the back of the living room.
Okay. Next one, please. Is Exhibit 19 the same room but from a different angle?
That's the same room. That's our front door.
What is this right here?
That there were side lights on each side of the door.
You're saying the word side lights?
Side lights.
And was this structure on both sides?
Yes.
You could stand on the inside and see outside
Yes.
without opening the door?
Yes.
And what is this room down here?
And that's our den.
Okay. Next one. Again, is this the front?
Yes.
Same front door? On
Yes, ma'am.
different side light?
Yes.
What's through this door?
That's where you walk into the kitchen, then dining room, then the other bathroom, and Clint and Holly's bedrooms.
Next one. This doorway, whose room are we looking into?
That's Holly's bedroom.
And is this the view you have from standing in the hall?
Right when you walk through the door.
Okay. Next one. What is this?
That's her bed, and
What are these and what's this?
that's where she had her pillows up against the wall studying that morning. And that's her comforter and her cowboy hat.
And is this the way her bedding and room looked when you last saw her sitting there?
Yes.
Before she moved to the kitchen table?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You mentioned bathroom.
That would be the bathroom that Clint and Holly used. And if you come out of the bathroom, you can see into Holly's bedroom.
This door frame right here,
Yes.
looking into Holly's.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Next one. What is this?
And that's the dirty clothes hamper beside the vanity in Clint and Holly's bathroom.
Who pretty routinely left her hairdryer there on top of the dirty clothes?
That would be Holly.
And is this the way, I guess, what this looked like to the right of the vanity? Is this where she actually put her dirty clothes?
Yes.
And and the last one. You didn't put that yellow placard there, did you?
No, I did not.
Were you asked, but nevertheless, this is the same dirty clothes basket?
Yes, that's the same one. That's Holly's jeans, and that's that pink. That's her T-shirt.
All right. We can turn the lights back up. Were you asked to retrieve something? Were you asked to retrieve something out of the Holly's belongings or out of the dirty clothes basket by law enforcement?
Yes.
What were you asked to find?
They asked me to. I think they asked me to get a pair of her panties.
And did you find a pair of her panties
Yes, I did.
out of that basket?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you provide those to law enforcement?
I did.
I'm looking for gloves. I'm sorry, Your Honor. One moment. I'm going to pass forward a bag and gloves. If you don't have to take them out, you don't have to. But look in there and tell me if you recognize.
Those are Holly's panties?
Are those the panties that you provided to law enforcement?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I ask this to be marked as the next numbered exhibit.
No objection. Exhibit 27.
Is it 26 or 27?
It's 26. It's 26.
Somebody added.
I probably said it.
Somebody told me
I think I did.
8 plus 18 would be 26, but if it starts with 18, it's actually 25, so this is 26.
And were you, did you know why they wanted that particular item of clothing from Holly?
I did not.
They just asked you for it and then you turned it over to them?
I did.
I asked you a few minutes ago how you, or what door you left when going to work that morning.
The back door.
So if you walk out your back door, are there any steps down into the carport or is it smooth?
You walk out onto the back deck, and then directly to your left as you're going out, you'll go down 2 steps into the carport.
To get to your car, how did you get to your car? What did you pass by?
I passed by Holly's car.
And in passing to get to Holly's car, did you go down those steps?
I went down those steps in front of her car, around to my car.
I'm going to pass forward 2 photographs. Do you recognize the steps concreted in the front of a car?
I do.
In fact, the front of one of the cars is a license plate or tag that you recognize.
Yes.
And what are these pictures of? Whose house, whose carport?
That's ours.
And are these the steps that you walked down to get to your car on April the 13th?
Yes.
Ask if you mark as your next numbered exhibit, Your Honor.
Okay, did you wish to publish the last 2 or not?
Oh, we had published.
27 to 28 hasn't been published.
Oh, did you already mark it? Yeah, we got to get it. I'm going to get a sticker on it first.
Right.
And then, yes, sir.
27 to 28.
placing Exhibit 27 on the overhead. Karen, when you went down the steps that morning,
That blow is not there.
when you walked, are these the steps you talked about?
Those are the steps, but that blow is not there. But I did see it later that day.
When you left that morning, this is directly how you walked?
Yes, ma'am.
You've seen it?
I would have seen that blood. It was not there.
All right. Next exhibit, please. So this is the way you came out the back door, walked down the deck, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Steps down.
Yes.
What about these drops?
They weren't there.
Can't hear you.
They weren't there.
You said that over the next weeks and months, you didn't go back to school, you just sort of did a lot of searching and following up on leads, is that right?
Yes.
Did you actually look in abandoned buildings and structures that weren't abandoned, just whatever you could look, you looked?
Yes.
Was your number, your cell number, like out there in the public? I mean, had it been,
Yes. I think I even had it put on a card at some point in time
so that people could call you?
so that people could call.
And at some point, did you get a call from a young lady that identified herself as Ednisha Brasher?
Yes, I did.
Can you describe that phone call for the jury?
She called me and she said, I think I have Holly's, this is Holly's, I'm not sure exactly what she said, but I think she said, is this Holly's mom? And I said, yes. And she said she had Holly's SIM card. And so I told Dana and Clint, and they agreed to go meet her.
Okay, let me ask you this. When you got that, did you actually think that somebody did have her SIM card?
I did, but Dana didn't.
And so did Dana go someplace to meet this woman who had called, or this young lady that had called?
Yes. Him and Clint went, and
Did they return with something?
they did. And while they was gone, I called. I don't remember if I called the TBI or the local law enforcement and told them about it.
And did the law enforcement come to your house?
They did. They came and got the SIM card that night.
So you sort of answered my next question. Did they bring a SIM card back?
Yes, they did.
And then you turned it over to law enforcement that
Yes.
night? Did you put it in a phone or check it out to see if it was hers or not?
No.
You just turned it over?
Yes.
Did you, in the course of, I guess, trying to help law enforcement look for Holly, did you even provide them a list of things that were in her purse?
I did.
How did you know what was in her purse?
Because I'd put the money in her purse that morning, and I knew what was in her purse because her wallet, she and I bought when we went to Maurice's together, and her purse. I'm sure I probably bought the pencil bag, or we'd gotten it together because Holly, she never wanted to go, she hated to shop. So usually if she shopped, we went together, or I'd just pick up something and it was fine with her.
So were you able to give law enforcement a whole list of things that they should be on the lookout for that would have been in her purse?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you also describe for them what she was wearing that morning, since you saw her studying at the kitchen table?
Yes, I did.
And what was she wearing?
She was wearing a pair of jeans and a girly girl t-shirt.
What does that mean?
That's a name brand, and in the back of it said, I think it said, "Don't squat with your spurs on." And then I didn't know what kind of shoes she was wearing because she didn't have her shoes on. But when I went to her closet, I was able to tell them by what pair was missing. And I didn't, of course, see her in her bra and panties, but I was also able to tell them what bra and panties was missing because I did most of the laundry, even though Holly house cleaned, she didn't do much laundry.
And what kind of shoes did you tell law enforcement that Holly was wearing?
A pair of black Old Navy flip-flops.
So,
And we had actually talked about that morning, because she had, not that she was going to wear flip-flops, but she had asked me what the weather was going to be. I said, I think it's kind of going to be cool this morning, but hot in the afternoon.
and that was during the time when she was studying for her test?
Yes.
Do you remember today what kind of test it was or what she had to turn in that day?
No, I don't.
I want you to look at one document and ask if you recognize it.
I do.
What is that?
That's her, she had to study for her names of different drugs, I think, but that is definitely her handwriting.
Is there a date on the paper?
4/13/11.
Your Honor, ask that this be marked as the next company exhibit.
All right, the 29.
If we can publish that.
You're not going to see it unless the lights are dimmed.
You said, while we're doing that, you said she had been working on some note cards for different drugs, and this says drug card grade sheet, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Whose writing is this?
That's Holly's writing.
And what's the date?
4/13/2011.
That's the last morning you saw her.
That is.
You said you,
Please inform the jury when you go to deliberations, you'll have all these physical exhibits we'll go with you. So, I mean, if you can't see it as clearly as you'd like, you'll actually have the exhibit up there.
did you pack her lunch that day?
I did.
What her lunchbox looked like?
I remember it had polka dots on it, and it had her initials.
Pass a sack and ask you to look at the contents of the sack. You can pull it out.
It's her
Holly's
lunch.
lunchbox?
Yes, ma'am.
I want you to unzip it. Is that the sandwich you made for her?
Yes.
Is that her lunch?
Yes, ma'am.
You left that morning, that was in the refrigerator. Zip it back up. Your Honor, I'm not going to pass it. May I have permission just to hold it up?
Yes.
Miss Nikki.
This is what you need to watch for. This thing's not lost.
hers. It's hers.
Whether you were able to provide law enforcement with a list of things that Holly had with her in her purse, if her purse was with her, right?
Yes.
You felt pretty comfortable that you would, with the items or what you told them that she had, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Show you one more item. What is this?
That looks like her purse.
Is that her purse?
It's her purse.
The straps are gone, and but you recognize that as being hers. Ask that this be marked as the next number.
Agenda exhibit, and the evidence is Exhibit 31.
Your Honor, I'm sorry that I'm having a hard time. I know it's very emotional, but it's hard to get.
You might have to get a little closer to the mic.
That is her purse. It's very hard to look at all that stuff all tattered and torn because it didn't look like that morning. But that's her purse.
Did you tell TBI that there would be a camera in her purse?
I did.
Do you recognize this?
That's her camera.
Next number to exhibit, Your Honor?
32.
Holly's car was still there, though, right? At your house when you got back?
Yes, it was.
But did you tell TBI that she had keys? She had a key ring in her purse?
Yes, she did.
Did you describe for them, or can you describe what her
It
chain
was.
looked like?
It was a big H, and it had like rhinestones. And it. And the Browning symbol.
And the what symbol?
The Browning, like she had on the back of her car, the pink Browning symbol and the H. That's her keys.
Is this her car key?
Yes, ma'am.
Permission just to hold it up, Your Honor?
Yes.
Like that, please. You mentioned earlier in your testimony that you told them about her wallet because you were there when she purchased it.
Yes. That is her wallet.
I'm going to open it. There appear to be several cards in here. What is that?
That's her prescription card, medicine card.
What is this one?
It's her Jackson State ID. That's her doctor when she goes to the doctor.
Our insurance card?
Her insurance card. That's her driver's license.
Ask that this be marked as
33. Unless I'm off, ain't it?
I think it's the keys, car keys.
Oh, car keys, yeah, 33 is the keys. This is 34 wallet and contents.
have permission to publish on this?
Yes.
But not the contents. Pass back to Ms. Bobo, and I want you to look in it and tell me if there's a $20 bill where you put one that morning.
No, there's nothing in it. Yes, you did. Take just a minute. I'm feeling sick.
Let's take a recess. I want everyone to remain with me while the jury files out, please. Oh. Got a nurse. Got a nurse. Come on. Let's let the jury go ahead and file out. Get some lights. Lights, Clark. Please.
Watch yourself. Don't move. Come here, Karen. Come here, baby.
Everyone else remain with me, please.
I feel like I can't breathe.
We'll bring her back in a minute. Defense counsel indicated that they wanted a jury out. I'd be glad to hear anything.
Record to reflect that at the time that Miss Bobo was being cross-examined, Miss Nichols was at the...
She wasn't being cross-examined, direct
examination. She was being handed certain items, very personal items. And at that time, apparently, Karen Bobo suffered a panic attack. She passed out in front of the jury. She required medical attention. And under these facts, I think it's going to be impossible for her to get a fair trial, for Mr. Adams to get a fair trial from an impartial jury. I think they're so tainted at this point that the proceedings should be stopped and a new jury should be called.
All right, let me say this. The witness was within 5 feet of the court. She first started she said words to the effect that she was not feeling well. Before I could get a recess called, and we had a little problem I was trying to solve media-wise, that I'd almost called a recess. I dealt with that during the recess. But before I could get a recess called, she in fact had a medical event, and she passed out cold. This chair is fixed, so they had some difficulties extricating her. The jury was in passing or filing out the door at that time. This was clearly a medical event. There's no question. This was not something fake to gain sympathy. This lady had a medical issue. A nurse came up immediately, thank you, whoever that was. And then they've had paramedics on call. The sheriff he's had them here arranged since day one. They won't give us an ambulance, but they will give us paramedics close. They have dealt with her. They feel that she's ready to go now. They said extremely low blood pressure when they first started, as I understand. Very rapid heartbeat. The types of things that are consistent with syncopic events. Okay? And I know because I've had them. And they're no fun. But this was not something that was done in an effort to achieve any type of sympathy or anything. If you want me to, I'll instruct the jury that they are not to give any sympathy whatsoever because of the fact that Ms. Bobo apparently had a medical event, but your motion for mistrial is overruled.
Yeah, Your Honor.
Do you want me to instruct them to that?
Yes, Your Honor, I would ask for it. And also, Your Honor, after they finish their direct examination, we would like, of course, to have an opportunity to cross-examination because of the medical event. We would ask that we have a recess until in the morning to begin our cross-examination.
I'm not going to do that. I will continue to watch. Basically, the paramedics have given me the thumbs up at this time. So I'm trying to march this case toward conclusion. I don't know any reason to lose that kind of time. I'll make sure that you have an adequate opportunity to cross-examine, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. No. Say this, we've been on recess about 30 minutes. Immediately prior to that recess, the witness had a medical event that necessitated us getting a recess. Everything should be good to go now. I want to tell you and instruct you that you're to have no sympathy or prejudice for either side of this case. The mere fact that she had a medical event, please don't sympathize with that side of the case because of that. Listen to the testimony, give it the weight you think that it deserves, but just basically set aside the fact that she had a medical event. Okay, will each of you do that? All right, thank you. All right, you can continue. And I instructed the attorneys to speak up. Ms. Bobo, you might have to get on that mic, okay?
Yes, sir.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
I had my hearing checked last Wednesday to make sure I wasn't going down. And believe it or not, it was pretty good. But I've lost a little bit of high frequency. It said it might affect hearing the higher-pitched females, or said something like the grandkids. I said, you don't know my grandkids. There's no problem hearing them. All right, go.
Ms. Bobo, you
Did
said...
we get 34 marked?
Yes.
The ball is okay. Yes, sir.
You indicated that in the weeks and months that followed, that you, I guess, were tracking down a number of leads.
Yes, ma'am.
Or tips, or people that became of interest to you or that you heard from. Is that true?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Included in those people that you talked to, did that list of people include Zachary Adams?
Yes, it did.
Do you see him in the courtroom?
Yes, I do.
Would you point him out for the jury, please?
Right there.
There's a number of people sitting on the side of the courtroom. Where is he sitting?
He would be sitting second from the podium.
Okay, for the record, the defendant.
And where did you encounter him?
Clint and I went to his house.
Did you go, are you familiar with Adams Lane?
I wasn't.
Okay, but you became familiar with Adams Lane?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that like a long driveway, and at the top there's two houses?
Yes, ma'am.
Who lives in one house?
The first house you get to is Zach's house, and then his granddad's house.
And what is the first house that you went to at the end of that driveway?
We went to Zach's house, and he didn't come to the door, and that was me and Dana and Clint, I believe. And so we went on to his granddad's house, and Dylan was there, and his granddad, and I asked him, was Zach at home? He said he was at home, and I said, well, he didn't come to the door. He said, well, maybe he left.
I'm going to object to the hearsay.
And we're not offering this for the truth, it's just
All right.
simply to show what her response was to
What she did.
Yes.
All right. It's not hearsay. You have to show objection overruled.
All right, so you said you knocked on Zach's door, he wasn't there, then you go next door to Dylan and Dick Adams' house?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and who answered the door?
I don't remember.
One of the two of them?
One of the two of them.
All right, did you have a conversation with them?
We had a conversation with both of them.
Okay. Did you ask about Zach?
I did ask about Zach.
All right, and what did they say?
I don't remember too much about what they said.
And I'm talking about whether they said he was home or not.
Dylan said he was at home, and I said he didn't come to the door.
Okay. And then what happened? With respect to Zach?
I left my phone number and told Dylan that I wanted to talk to Zach.
And did Dylan indicate that he would give Zach that message?
Yes, he did.
All right. And do you remember when this happened? How early in the investigation?
I believe it was July.
July of what year?
July 2011.
So despite the fact no arrests were made for quite some time, you, investigating leads, had already gone to that house.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you leave the message with Dylan. Did you ever hear back?
Yes.
Anybody call you?
Zach called the next day, and
Did you know him before? Did you know Zach Adams?
I had Zach in the 4th grade. I was his 4th grade school teacher.
Okay. So when you left a message for him to call you, it was call Karen Bobo. You're somebody he knew.
That's correct.
Okay. So you said he called you in?
He called the next day.
And what, if anything, did he say you say?
He said, I hear you're wanting to talk to me. And I said, yes. And he said, well, you can come on over to my house. And I said, well, I'll be bringing my son because that was a work day. Dana was at work. And so Clint and I went over there, but I called Dana's boss to tell him that we were going over there.
Okay. So,
Dana, I believe, was working in Benton County at the time, around holiday.
but Dana didn't get there in time to go with you and Clint?
No, I didn't even tell Dana we were going.
Just told his boss?
Yes.
Right. So did you and Clint actually go to Zach Adams' house?
Yes, we did.
And you say that was in what month?
July 2011.
Right. And what happened when you got there?
When we got there, I can't remember if he came to the door or the front door was open. And so he invited us in, and we went in just the living room part. And we sat down. I'm not sure he ever sat down. His behavior was, his voice was low one minute, loud the next. I don't remember a whole lot about what he said, but 2 things stand out to me that he said.
Right. And what is the first one?
He asked Clint to describe what the person looked like who walked away with Holly. And when Clint described him, he said that was Shane.
Okay.
And I just found that odd.
Okay. Did you know who Shane was?
I did.
Did you have him in school as well?
No, I did not.
Just knew who he was. All right. What was the second thing that he said?
He told me, this is just out of the blue, that he could call someone with his phone and make it look like it was coming from my phone.
So did he use the word spoofing, or is that a term you're familiar
He
with?
did use that word, but I didn't have a clue what it meant.
So those are the two things that you remember him saying.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have any other encounters with him? I should have asked. Did you go there to ask about your daughter?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And that's the information you came away with, was he described one individual as being Shane?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you know that there are other people charged with raping and kidnapping Holly and killing
Yes,
her?
ma'am.
Did you meet with any of those people in the course of doing your own investigation?
Yes, all of them.
When you say all of them,
All 4 of them. The first one being Shane.
you talked to Shane first
Yes,
on one or more occasions.
more than one.
And do you know Shane's parents even?
I do know Shane's parents, yes. I had Shane's sister in school. I did not have Shane.
So you talked to Shane. What is his last name?
Shane Austin.
Okay. And who else did you talk to?
We talked to Jimmy and Rita Austin.
Okay.
We went to their house because we thought Shane lived with them, and his mom told me that they had to move him out because they would come home and their house would be full of drugs and people on drugs.
All right. So after talking to her, you talked to Shane at some point. Not going to ask what he told you. What about Dylan? Now, you told the jury that when you went to see Zach the first time, you actually had a conversation with Dylan and with his grandfather, Dick. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that the only time that you talked to Dylan?
Yes, it is.
Did you know Dylan before going to the house that day?
I knew what he looked like, but I didn't have Dylan in school.
Okay. What about Jason Hawtrey?
I had Jason in the 7th grade at Parsons.
And did you go and talk to him?
Yes, we did.
How many times did you talk to Jason Hawtrey?
At least twice.
And will you tell the jury where those conversations took place?
The first time we were getting ready to walk out the door to go to early church, and we got a phone call from a girl at the Shell station, I believe. And she said she had someone she wanted us to speak with.
Wait. Objection.
To the hearsay, Your Honor.
It's not a hearsay, I was there.
You're describing a conversation someone had with you.
Yes, sir.
Is it being offered for the
It
truth?
is not. It's offered for what she did when she got
All
this
right,
information.
your objection's overruled. By definition, that's not hearsay.
You understand, you got some information from a lady over the phone that said she was at a Shell station?
She said she worked at the Shell station, and so we went there.
Okay. And when you got there, was anyone there? Did you encounter somebody?
It was some guy that she wanted us to meet.
Okay.
So we went out searching all day, and then we were hot and tired. This was in August, and
August of what year?
2011.
Okay.
And so we go back to one of those gas stations, I'm not sure which one, to get us something to drink, and we're getting ready to check out. And I think Dana said, look, come in there, and it was Jason Hawtrey. So he gets in line behind us to check out, and I turn around and tell him I want to talk to him.
Okay. Now, you can't say what he said, but did you talk to him that day?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you also go and talk to him on another day at his house or his mom's house?
Yes, people kept calling and turning in their names to us, all 4 of their names, so we went back to Jason's house. I'm not sure when that was. I'm not even sure it was 2011. We went to his mother's house. The first time was August 2011.
So between April of 2011 and August of 2011, had you talked to all 4 of them?
Yes, ma'am.
And when I say you with Clint and or Dana?
Yes, ma'am.
There have been some questions and statements made about pressure put on law enforcement to solve this case. So let me ask you a couple of questions along those lines, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know who I guess, the case officer or the chief investigator for TBI was in the beginning?
Yes, I do.
Who was that?
Terry Dicus.
And when this case started being investigated and as it continued the weeks and months, did you have contact with Terry Dicus frequently or infrequently?
Frequently. Daily.
Daily?
Daily, just to probably sometimes multiple times during the day.
Do you know whether Terry Dicus wanted to close this case? Wanted it to be done?
He did very much so.
Did he make certain promises to you?
Yes, he did.
And Your Honor, again, I'm not going to offer this for the truth. It'll become obvious. What statements did Terry Dicus make to you about your daughter?
He told me that he would have my daughter home before her 21st birthday, which was in October. And then when that date rolled around, he told me he would have her home before Thanksgiving. And when that date rolled around, he told me he would have her home before Christmas. And when that date rolled around and she wasn't home, he said he would have her home before Valentine's.
Holly didn't come home, did she?
No, she did not.
And do you remember a time, nearly exactly 3 years ago, September the 7th, 2014, did you receive certain information?
Yes, I did.
And who was the information from?
From TBI, Jack Van Hoosier.
And was Jack Van Hoosier Terry Dicus' boss?
Yes.
And where were you when you got the information?
When I got the phone call that they had found human remains in northern Decatur County, I was checking out at American Eagle in the mall.
Go home?
Went straight home.
And then later on that evening, or the next day, did a group of TBI agents come to your house?
They did.
Is that when you learned that the remains that were found are Holly?
Yes, ma'am. I believe it was, that happened on a Sunday when they called and told us they had found human remains, and they said it might be several days, but I believe they came back Monday night and told us that it was Holly.
Your Honor, I don't have any further questions.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. First, I'd ask for any jinx material for this.
Okay. Anything?
We've turned over, as Your Honor knows, every statement and whatnot that we've ever.
I asked you, hopefully, to do that where we wouldn't have to take
Well, I mean,
after each witness breaks.
yeah, we did it during the course of discovery. I haven't turned over anything today because she has.
Weren't there some text messages that were going back and forth with the family? I thought there were some text messages. I'd ask for those also.
I have no idea what she's talking about. May we approach text messages between who and who?
Jury after this moment.
Some type of instruction to the jury about evidence that's been destroyed.
And for all we know, it could be text messages about I'm coming to your house.
I just fixed to say, meet me at 3 o'clock at the Shell station.
But we don't know because I can't.
They've given you everything they've got. Let's go. Bring the jury in.
Your Honor, I'd also ask for a curative instruction. They've allowed in things that people said. It wasn't for the truth of the matter, and like a curative instruction, just to tell the jury that whatever was repeated as what people said is only to put into perspective what happened next, and they're not to consider what they said as being truthful, such as the fact that the Austin family said if people were over there, there'd be full of drug people and drug
That's
parties.
a legal issue. I don't think I've tried to explain hearsay to attorneys.
But
There's 7 out of 10 attorneys don't know the definition of hearsay.
I believe that there's an instruction available that says that that's a limited use on what those statements come in as, Your Honor.
And a curative instruction with respect to what the lady at the Shell station told her, that's fine. It's nothing. A curative instruction with respect to Dylan saying I'll give him the message, that's fine. A curative instruction as to what Zach told her, of course, would be inappropriate because that was offered for the truth.
I can't.
I'm not talking about Zach.
I can't give a curative instruction on every time I rule on some type of objection.
Right, we could have
You
it
probably
generally.
shouldn't have objected because as an attorney, you should know the definition of hearsay.
I do know the definition of hearsay, and until it comes out, I don't know if it's for the content of the matter. Simply because the state says I'm not doing it for the truth of the matter doesn't mean that's not why it's coming in.
I'll tell the jury, I'll take care of it. Bring the jury out. You all right?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Be seated, please. All right, let me say earlier there were some objections based upon hearsay. I'm not going to send you to law school, but I'm going to tell you generally that hearsay is an out-of-court statement made by somebody that is offered for the truth of what is being said. So everything someone else says is not necessarily hearsay by definition. If that is simply being shown to offer why someone did what they did in response to it, it's not hearsay, okay? Everybody kind of generally understand? And that's after first year law school that you learn that. Some attorneys never learn it, so you folks are up on it, okay? All right.
Good afternoon, Ms. Bobo. I'm Jennifer Thompson. You may have seen me at hearings, but I know we haven't talked before.
That's correct.
And I recognize that today is a very difficult day for you, and it's been a hard afternoon. I want to be very respectful of you, but there's some questions I wanted to ask you this evening that I think only you or you would be the person to answer these questions. Okay. One, I wanted to ask you about, I found somewhere in one of the reports that you had discussed Janet Britt and the fact that she had worked at Joe's Video. Okay, that's the topic I'm going to go to. So in Parsons, Tennessee, there was a video rental store called Joe's Video. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And your family had a membership there, didn't they?
Yes, ma'am.
And as a matter of fact, you all would go there and rent movies regularly.
I wouldn't say regularly, but sometimes.
Okay. And a woman named Janet Martin Britt worked at Joe's Video.
Not April the 13th, 2011. No, she did not.
But at one point in the past, Janet Martin Britt had worked at Joe's Video.
Yes, she had.
Okay. And she, at one point, you had said that she recognized your family. When you
I had her son in school also.
Okay. And so when you would go to the rental store, she didn't have to look up your membership number. She knew what it was.
That's correct.
Okay. And she knew your two children, Clint Bobo and Holly Bobo. Didn't she?
I'm not sure. I did never discuss that with her.
Okay. Didn't you, in fact, at some point tell the investigators that Jan had known Clint and Holly their entire life?
I'm not sure. Do you have that where I can see that? I don't remember making that statement.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to pass this up.
Okay.
May I see what you're passing forward?
It's an IR.
It's not her statement, Your Honor.
It's on her statement. It's
Yeah.
a
So,
statement that was
if I
taken
can
by...
finish, my objection would be, it's not Ms. Bobo's statement. It's something somebody else has said that she said. So that
You can ask her if she said it.
Right, and this
That's
might,
what you've done. You might have to call someone else that authored that statement if you intend to use it for impeachment.
yes, this
Okay.
might refresh her memory, so I was going to just pass it up to her and see if it would refresh her memory at all.
I do not remember making that statement.
Okay, that's fine. And the conversation that you had with Mr. Adams in July of 2011, you in fact interviewed lots and lots of people in Decatur County, didn't you?
Some.
You taped a lot of the conversations you had with people,
Yes, I did.
and you turned over dozens of interviews to the TBI, didn't you?
Probably.
And the conversation that you had with Zachary Adams that day was in fact recorded.
Yes, it was.
Okay. And that's a recording that you had turned over to the TBI,
Yes.
along with dozens of other recordings.
Not at that time.
But over the course of the investigation, you had turned over
Yes, ma'am.
dozens of recordings. Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Anything else?
Maybe.
All right, step down just a little bit. Call your next witness.
Steakhouse Clint, Bobo.
All right. Come on up here and raise your right hand, please. Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Be seated. State your name for the record and spell first and last name for the benefit of the court reporter.
Clint Bobo, Clint Bobo.
Okay, proceed.
Clint, we met your mom, we met your dad, we've heard about her sister. When I ask you questions, I want you to keep your voice up so I can hear you back here, okay?
Well,
Can you do that?
yes.
Maybe a little bit louder than that.
Yes.
How old are you?
I'm 32 years old.
What kind of job do you have now?
I am a social worker.
Do you have a family now?
I do.
Wife?
I have a wife.
Y'all have kids yet?
No, no kids.
It's you and your wife.
That's right.
We're going back 6-7 years. We're going back to April 13th, 2011. Okay?
Okay.
Where were you living back then?
At that time, I lived at 681 Swan Johnson Road, Darden, Tennessee.
Who else lived there?
It was me, my sister Holly, my dad Dana, and my mom Karen.
You're a little older than Holly, is that right?
About 5 years.
Were you working back then?
I was.
Where were you working?
Well, I had a part-time job at nursing homes, and I worked at 3 different nursing homes at that time.
Were you going to school?
I was.
Where were you going to school?
University of Tennessee at Martin.
Working, going to school at the same time, a 25-year-old, right?
That's right.
Probably every bit of it.
Yes.
That morning, April 13th, 2011, is it a morning that you thought a lot about?
Yes, I have.
Is it a morning that you've been questioned a lot about?
Yes.
By your friends?
Yes.
By your family?
Yes.
By law enforcement?
Yes.
Attorneys?
Yep.
Well, we're going back to it again.
Okay.
That morning, how'd you wake up? When'd you wake up?
I woke up to hearing the sound of our house dog, Rascal, barking.
What kind of dog is it?
He is a Shih Tzu.
It's a little thing.
Yeah,
He barks a lot.
he's pretty small. He barks pretty often.
That woke you up.
Yes.
And what'd you do?
I went back to sleep.
All right. So you're woken up by a dog barking, but you didn't get out of bed?
No.
Okay. So you wake up, dog barking. Stop barking?
Well, yeah, I waited. I guess I was awake for a few seconds, and then I tried to go back to sleep, but maybe he stopped barking at some point in time, then he started barking again.
And did something wake you up again?
Just the sound of him continuing to bark.
Okay. So the little dog's still barking.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
I decided I would get up, that he probably wasn't going to stop barking, so I would go ahead and get up and go to try to find out what he was barking at.
What did you expect to find?
I expected something to see a utility vehicle outside, like a water meter reader or an electric meter reader or something, or a delivery truck.
You expected something normal.
Yeah.
Normally the dog barks or something like that.
Yes, he does. Anytime someone comes up, or even if there's a loud vehicle sometimes that travels down the road, he would bark.
And what'd you do? Where'd you go?
Well, I got up and I walked into the den, or the at that time I walked through the kitchen into like the foyer, and I looked out the front windows that were next to the front door.
Well, there's some side windows.
Yeah, side lights is what we call those.
And y'all say that fast, it sounds like satellites.
That's right.
But side lights?
Side lights.
I'm going to show you, Clint, what's been previously marked as Exhibit 19 and 20. It's going to be behind you.
Okay.
Is that the foyer you're talking about?
It is.
If I show you Exhibit number 20, I'm not good at that. What do you see in Exhibit 20?
That's the foyer area with the front door open.
All right, you got the front door, you got those side lights?
That's right.
All right, you looked out there, what'd you see?
I didn't see anything. I didn't see any vehicles. Didn't see anything.
Okay, what'd you do next?
Well, I looked out. I walked over to the window that overlooks the attached garage, or carport, and as I was approaching that, I didn't look at anything really, but as I was approaching that window, I heard voices in the.
So let me interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you a few times, okay?
Okay.
Is this a window that is in the house, or is it in a door?
It's in the house.
Okay, so there's a window in the back of the house?
Yes.
That looks into the carport, or looks out at the detached garage?
It looks into the carport attached to the house.
So you're looking out of an interior window into the carport.
That's right.
Is that right?
That's right.
Are you able to see anything?
Well, I raised the blinds slightly, and I saw the silhouette of two individuals underneath that window knelt down.
Was it dark in that carport, or was it light?
It was fairly dark.
There were blinds down in the window?
Yes.
Did you pull them all the way up, or did you just...
No, I very slightly opened one of the blinds enough where I could see out.
Why did you do it like that?
Because I heard the voices out in the carport.
Now, this time in the morning, you've just woken up, right?
That's right.
What information do you have? Did you know where your mom was?
I assumed that she was at school, at work.
You assumed?
Yeah.
You didn't see her leave?
No.
Did you know where your dad was?
I assumed that he was also at work.
But you didn't see him leave?
No.
Did you know where your sister was?
No.
So So you're fresh out of sleep to a barking dog. The front of the house, there's nothing. So you walk to the back.
Right.
And you look in this dark carpet.
Right.
And you were describing that you saw like the silhouettes of people. Did you see these silhouettes or did you hear voices first?
I was going by what I heard, and I was going by the voices. I heard the voices first, and then I raised the blind to try to look out the window.
Describe the voices to me.
Well, it was a male's voice and a female's voice.
Did you actually recognize either of the two voices?
At first, I didn't recognize either voice, but as I listened for just seconds, I could recognize my sister's voice and what I thought was her boyfriend Drew's voice.
And why did you think it was her boyfriend Drew's voice?
Well, because he was the only male figure in Holly's life besides myself and my dad.
So you were making an assumption?
That's right.
Did you know Drew very well?
Yes.
Y'all are good friends, actually, right?
Yes.
Did y'all go hunting together?
We did.
Ride four-wheelers together?
We did.
And you assumed it was his voice?
Yes.
How were the two voices talking to each other? In what manner were they talking?
The male voice sounded somewhat aggravated, and the female voice would just answer back and sounded upset.
Did you actually hear the words that were being spoken?
No, I wasn't able to make out what they were saying.
So were you going by the tone or volume or something like that?
That's right.
Voices?
That's right.
And is all this happening over the course, because we talk about it here, and it sounds like it's happening over the course of minutes, but in fact it's happening over the course of what?
All of this is taking place just within a few minutes.
Okay. These voices, how long do you listen to them for?
Well, I would say just less than minutes. I would say seconds.
So you're fresh out of sleep.
Yeah.
The barking dog, nothing out front, looking out to the carport, and you hear these voices.
That's right.
For seconds.
Yes.
And what do you see when you lift up the blind a little bit?
I see the silhouette of two individuals knelt down underneath that window.
Can you see their faces?
No.
Can you tell which one the male is and which one the female is?
By their voices, mostly, I can.
What do you mean by that?
The female voice that I heard, which I later recognized as Holly's voice, was on the right-hand side, and the male voice, who I thought was Drew, was on the left-hand side.
What happens next?
I tried to call my mom, and
Did you try to call your mom?
I was going to ask her if Holly didn't have school today because I knew that she was still at the house.
Well, let me ask you, if you assumed that male voice may be Drew and he's a friend of yours, why didn't you open up that door and check?
I don't know.
Have you thought about that question?
Not really.
You could have opened up the door, right?
That's right.
Were Drew and Holly having any sort of relationship problems that they'd be fighting in the morning?
Not that I was aware of.
Do you get involved in their relationship problems?
No, I stay out of.
Is that something you'd want to walk into?
No.
And so you try to call your mom?
Yes.
And why do you try to call your mom?
I was going to ask her if Holly didn't have school that day.
Were you able to reach your mom?
I was unable to reach her on the first try.
Were you able to get through to her?
Immediately after the phone call that I made, I also text her, call me ASAP.
Okay. Did you get a response?
She called back about 20 seconds after I sent the text.
Okay, so this is all still happening really fast.
Yeah.
As we're waiting for her to text back or call back or whatever it is, what are you doing?
I'm trying to kind of listen to the voices.
During this time, are you still thinking it's Drew and are you still thinking it's Holly?
Yes.
Does your mom reach back to you?
She does. She calls me right back after I sent that text message.
And what do you tell her?
I asked her, did Holly not have school today because her car is still here?
Did you tell her about the voices in the carport?
I don't recall.
What did she say when you asked about Holly not having school?
She said yes, she has school.
She actually had a test even.
Yeah, I was unaware of that at that time.
Is that how the phone call with you and Karen, the first one, ends? Or do y'all talk some more?
Well, I forgot to mention, I did see Holly's car in the garage whenever I looked out the window.
When you look out of this window, the carport's right there.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
These figures would have been right there.
Yes, right underneath the window.
And her car would have been right there.
Right there underneath it as well.
So you heard the voices, you saw the car. You asked your mom, did Holly not have school? No, Holly does have school.
She has school.
And then what next?
The reason I ask is, at some point, briefly before this, Holly's car wouldn't start one morning. I think the battery was dead or something, so we had to, I guess, I don't know if my dad did it or somebody had to, jump the car off to get it started. So I thought that maybe it just didn't start and someone was coming to pick her up.
Sure, but what did your mom say? I mean, what did y'all say to each other after it was established she did have school?
She said she did have school. And I believe at that point I said, well, her and Drew are out here in the garage.
And what did she say in response to that?
I believe she said, that's not Drew, call all the neighbors.
Well, she knew. She was working with different information than what you had.
That's right.
She knew that wasn't true.
Right.
Because she knew where Drew was. Because she had talked to Drew that morning.
That's right.
Holly talked to Drew that morning. But did you know where Drew was that morning?
I didn't. I assumed that he was turkey hunting somewhere, but I was unsure of where.
All right. That's not Drew. That's what she says?
Yes.
And what happens next?
She called back. I don't remember how much time had passed, but immediately at this time, I could no longer hear the voices. So I left where I was standing and I walked over to the back door, and that's when I saw a male and a female walking towards the woods. And I recognized the female as my sister, and at this time still thought the male was Drew. And he was wearing camouflage.
Could you see his face?
No. I couldn't see either of their faces.
Were they just a few feet from you, or were they many feet from you?
They were several feet from where I was.
You say several. In fact, later on, we're going to skip forward and come back to this minute and have you tell the rest of the story. But later on, did TBI get with you in that house, have you look out into that yard, and have people stand there as if they were this man and as if they were Holly? I think it's actually they have your mom, because she's the same height. Did that happen?
It did. We did that.
And we have you look at this picture. Tell me if you recognize that.
I do.
All right, what is that?
That is a viewpoint from the back door of our house up towards the woods where I last saw them walking.
Okay. And in fact, is this a picture from that, I guess you can call it a demonstration?
Yes.
Where you were standing at this window telling them where to be so that everybody could see what you saw.
It is.
I offer this as an excellent exhibit.
35 years.
This This back window you're talking about?
It is.
So you'd be standing inside the house right here at this back window, right?
That's the back door.
All right. After you heard the voices, and now you finally see something, is that right?
That's right.
A figure here?
Yes.
It's impossible to see with these lights on, but this exhibit will be passed around. But a figure
You
here?
want to be on?
Let's try it.
Let's.
This seems a little bit better. The figure here, is that right?
That's right.
And if we looked a little bit closer at this picture, we'd see the figure's wearing camouflage. Can you tell that from where you are right now?
Yes.
And then a figure right here, a pink shirt, like Holly was wearing.
Switch right there.
That's right.
That's better. So here's the first figure with camouflage. And here's the second in blue jeans and a pink shirt. That's actually your mom,
Yes.
but for this demonstration playing the role of Holly, is that right?
That's right.
Is this the view that you got that morning? The flash that you got of that man in camo?
It
Your
is.
sister?
It is.
You told us before that you were several feet away, but that's, to me, that's more than several feet.
It's quite a ways.
It's all the way across your backyard.
Right.
This is the tree line, right?
That's right.
The playground area that your dad built and everything for y'all, that would be out this way, right?
Yes, it's just to the right of where they're standing.
That detached garage would be way over here, right?
That's right.
So this is as much as you saw of the man in camo
Yes.
and of your sister.
That's right.
What are you thinking when you saw that? What are you thinking that morning when you saw that? When you had a flash like this from all these feet away of the man and your sister?
Well, at that time I thought, why is Holly wearing a pink shirt if they're walking into the woods? Obviously he's wearing camouflage and she has on a pink shirt.
Did you think they were going hunting or something?
Well, I was unsure. I thought it's a possibility.
Is any of this stuff making sense to you?
Not really.
Did you still think that person could be Drew?
It was at this time that his size seemed to be larger than Drew.
When you say larger, what do you mean? Do you mean taller? Do you mean stockier? You mean both? What do you mean?
Wider and heavier, stockier.
This flash from all these feet away across this yard, you say he looks heavier, stockier, wider
Yes.
than Drew.
That's right.
So what were you thinking when you noticed that difference?
It occurred to me at that time, I thought, no, that's not Drew, that's Richie.
And who's Richie?
Richie is our cousin.
All right, y'all cousin Richie. Because you didn't see the face, did you?
That's right.
But you're going on like body type.
Yes.
Were you still trying to make sense of what you were hearing and what you were seeing?
Yes.
It doesn't sound like you're doing a very good job of it, though.
No,
Right.
I was very confused.
Where did they go?
The last I seen them was about at the spot where they're standing in that picture.
Off into the woods.
I didn't see them enter the woods, but that's about the last view that I saw of them.
Why didn't you see him enter the woods?
I'm unsure. It could have been that second phone call from my mom came in at that time, and I looked down at the phone. I'm really unsure as to why I didn't see them enter the woods.
But into the woods, and then you don't see them anymore.
That's right.
Is there anything in those woods behind your house?
Yes, there's a trail just in front of where they're walking, and that trail leads up to an old logging road.
Yeah, there's actually a road that's, I don't know, how many yards would you say it's off into those woods?
From the trail to the logging road?
From where they're standing right there to the logging road.
Probably going to be about 8 to 10 steps.
8 to 10 steps till you get to the trail.
The entrance to the trail, and then
And how long down the trail to the logging road?
I think that we walked it was about 60 yards from the trail entrance to the logging road.
So about 70 or 80 yards into these woods you get to the logging road.
That's right.
That you can have a vehicle and you can take off driving.
Yes.
What do you do when you see him disappear into the woods?
Well, I talked to my mom again on the phone. She called me back.
And how's she acting?
She's panicked at this point.
Panic. And what is she telling you?
She said, "Oh my God, Clint, that's not Drew. Get a gun and shoot him."
That's not Drew. Get a gun and shoot him.
That's right.
You've woken up to something. Voices. Flash of this. Your mama yelling at you to get a gun and shoot somebody.
Right.
What do you do?
Well, I didn't do that. I was still thinking that it's either Drew or it's Richie. There's no reason for me to get a gun and shoot. I wouldn't shoot Drew. I wouldn't shoot Richie. I have not seen anything to indicate that I need to be trying to shoot anyone. So I didn't do that.
What did you do?
I think it was at this point that I was at the back door, or I went back to the back door. I think I was already standing there, but I opened the door up, I guess just to listen, or I'm not sure what I was about to do, go outside, I guess. And then I felt how cold it was that morning, and I was still in my pajamas. So I come back and
Let me interrupt you. We can tell at this point in the morning that you're confused.
Yeah.
Would you admit that?
Yes.
Confused by what you heard, what you assumed, and then later what you saw.
Yes.
Would you admit that you're also kind of scared of what was going on?
Just unsure.
So you open that door, and you don't run out and chase these two people into the woods, do you?
No.
What do you do?
I opened the door and I felt how cold it was, and I realized I'm in my pajamas, so I went and put on some pants and a jacket and some socks and a pair of shoes, and then I went out the back door.
Gun or no gun?
No, I also went and grabbed the .38 Colt revolver before I went out the door, and I also had my cell phone.
Got dressed, got a phone, you got a gun. Now what are you going to do?
I guess I'm going to go and look and walk up to the logging road to see if I can see them or hear them.
What do you do?
I walk out and then I look to my left where they were knelt down under that window, and there's a pool of blood in the garage.
There's a garage and there's a carport.
Carport.
Which one is it?
It's a carport attached to the house.
It's the one that you were lifting up that blind and peeking into, right?
That's right.
And you were seeing the silhouettes of your sister and somebody.
Yes.
And there's a pool of blood.
Yes, just below where they were knelt down.
And what are you thinking at this point?
I'm even more confused, because I'm thinking now, if it is Drew or if it is Richie, they've killed a turkey, they've brought it up here to the house and laid it on the carport, and it's been bleeding, and...
You're still not thinking that some man or some men came to your house that morning and abducted your sister and dragged her off in the woods?
Absolutely not.
Had that even crossed your mind at all?
No.
If that had crossed your mind, what would you have done?
Well, the situation would have been much different. I would have probably not called anyone. I would just got a gun and tried to kill the person that was with my sister. It would have been either him.
Outside with the gun and the phone, and now you're dressed. What do you see, other than the pool of blood after that?
Okay. I will go ahead and close the back door, and I'll walk across the deck, because obviously I don't want to walk down into the garage. So I take a right and I walk across the back deck and into the driveway, and I make a left, and I walk up through the backyard up to the entrance of that trail.
Sort of like over to the left of that playground structure.
That's right.
To the edge of where they walked in.
Yes.
And what'd you see?
I stopped walking just in front of where they are in that photograph at the wood line.
Why'd you stop there?
And I was just looking and listening, and I didn't see or hear anything. In fact, it was unusually quiet. I didn't hear any birds chirping. The wind wasn't blowing.
It's just real quiet.
Just
No man in camouflage anymore.
right,
No voices anymore.
right,
No holly anymore.
right.
How long do you sit there or stand there listening and looking?
I stood there for maybe like 30 seconds, and then I heard a vehicle coming up our driveway.
Okay. What happened then?
Well, I recognized the vehicle as Kathy Wise's Ford pickup truck.
All right. And who's Kathy Wise?
She was our neighbor at that time.
If you're looking at the front of your house, they live off to the right. Is that
That's right. That's right.
Kathy and James Barnes,
Yes.
his girlfriend, or ex-wife, or whatever it was.
I was unsure, but
Well, what did you think when you saw Kathy Wise's truck driving up?
well, I was still very confused because she never comes up to the house.
That's not something that normally happens.
Right.
Okay, but maybe it's something that could explain what was going on.
Yeah.
So did you talk to her?
Yeah, she parked her truck, and then she got out and approached me, and she saw I had a revolver in one hand and cell phone in the other hand, so I was holding both the objects up. Well, I put the barrel of the revolver in my pocket just to indicate that I don't intend to harm, that I don't intend any harm with the gun, and then she walks up and approaches me closer, and she says, "What's going on up here? My husband, Ed, heard screams about 15 or 20 minutes ago."
And Ed, same thing as James Barnes.
Well, Ed is actually Kathy Wise's husband, as far as I know.
But somebody had heard screams.
Yes.
What'd you say?
I didn't say any. I don't think I said anything back to her at that time. I had my cell phone, and then it was at that point that I went ahead and called 911.
All right. So at this point, we had heard voices. We'd seen a flash of a man in camouflage. Her sister, through the woods, drops or a pool of blood in the carport.
Yes.
And now the neighbor talking about a scream.
Yes, which was new information to me.
Had you ever heard a scream?
No.
And so now what do?
I'll go ahead and call 911 as my mom had instructed me to do earlier.
Your mom had instructed you earlier to go out there and shoot whoever it was, right?
Right.
Your mom had instructed you earlier to call 911, call all the neighbors.
That's right.
But now you do.
Yes.
As you're talking to 911, does anybody else arrive?
I'm on the phone with 911, and they actually what happened was I called 911 and it went to Henderson County. Well, we lived in Decatur County, so they said, hold on the line and I'll transfer you to Decatur County. So I hold on the line briefly, and then they transfer me to Decatur County, and I talked to the individual in Decatur County. Tried to explain, I guess I've tried to explain what...
Tried to explain something you couldn't explain.
Right, basically.
What did you tell them?
I was still very confused at this point. I believe I told him that I thought that my sister was missing.
Did you tell them that you had thought that she was with her boyfriend, Drew?
I don't remember going into any of those details.
While you're on the phone with 911, other policemen arrived. Is that right?
Yes, they must have already been dispatched, because I was on the phone with 911 briefly, and then I heard an engine of the car speeding toward our house.
Policemen get out?
Police car pulled up, and a deputy got out, asked me what's going on. But,
Did you tell him?
Yes, I think I told him what I had saw and what I had heard that morning, and he told me that he needed me to write out a statement. So he handed me a statement, and I don't remember him handing me an ink pen or a pencil, and I don't remember him handing me anything to lay the statement on to write it, just a piece of paper.
Some paper.
Yeah.
And he says, write down what you just told me.
Yeah, so I went back to his patrol car and laid the paper on his hood and asked for an ink pen, and I started writing my statement.
All right. So you started writing your statement about what you saw that morning.
That's right.
But other people started coming.
Yes. This was
more police?
Yes. Another Decatur County, this was a Decatur County officer that arrived first. Another Decatur County officer arrived, who is someone that I know. He arrived and got out, asked me what happened, kind of the same scenario.
You talked to him?
Yeah, briefly.
How about your mom? and Miss Brumley, did they get there?
I remember my mom and Miss Cherry Brumley arriving shortly after the second deputy.
And tell us about your mom.
They got out of the car or the vehicle, and then my mom approached me, and I think that she grabbed me by both arms and kind of shook me and said, "Why didn't you do something?" Very upset.
You understand she was just upset.
Yes.
And what'd you say?
I don't think I said anything at that point.
And then more police?
Yes.
How about people from the community? Did they start showing up?
Yes, a deputy from Henderson County, I believe, showed up next. And I'm not familiar with the exact order, but policemen continued to show up. People from the community started showing up in large numbers, and everyone that showed up walked up to me and asked me what happened. And I would try to go through just briefly, what I saw and heard. And I was unable to write my statement because of all of the people coming up and talking to me. So I decided that I would stop writing the statement on the hood of the patrol car, and I would get in the back of the patrol car and try to write my statement there. So that's what I did.
She was gone.
Yes.
She never came back.
Right.
Your mom told us how she searched, and your dad told us how he searched.
Yes.
How about you?
I searched with them as well.
Did this change your mom's life and your dad's life? Did it change yours?
Yes.
Did you ever know Zach Adams?
Not until after this happened.
I'm talking about as of April 13th, 2011.
No, I
Did you know Zach Adams?
No, I did not.
Did you know Shane Austin?
No, I did not.
Did you know Dylan Adams?
I knew of Dylan Adams. I think I had seen Dylan Adams at my grandmother's house on possibly one or two occasions.
Had you ever hung out with him?
No.
Under what circumstances would he have been at your grandmother's house?
He was friends with my cousin Brent Cornett.
Did you know Jason Hawtrey?
No.
Since April 13th, 2011, have you seen them? All four of those people?
Yes.
Your mom told us how y'all went and interviewed people.
We did.
Right?
We did.
Now, as that man's walking into the woods there, and you're noticing that he's wider or stocky or whatever it is than your cousin Richie. Oh, no.
Then Drew.
Then Drew.
Yes.
That he's about the same size as your cousin.
Yes.
Richie. Would you agree with me that, well, what height and weight would you assign that, if you had to?
The man that I saw, I would describe as about 5'10", 5'11" in height and about 200 pounds in weight.
Would you agree with me that that is not the same physical size or stature of Zach Adams?
I would.
That is not, correct?
That is not.
That's not the same size because he's real tall of Jason Hawtrey. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But how about Shane Austin?
When I first seen Shane Austin, that does fit the description of size and weight of Shane Austin.
Do you know if the male voice you heard in the garage is the same person as the camouflage man?
That is something that stood out to me because the voice I heard in the garage sounded a certain way, and then the man that I saw walking away with Holly looked a certain way, and I don't know if anyone would understand this, but the voice didn't match the body type.
You don't know how many people were out there, do you?
I don't.
At least one.
Yes.
But the voice could have been a different voice.
It could have been.
There could have been people you didn't see and you didn't hear.
That's right.
But you're here today telling us what you heard and what you saw.
That's correct.
And you've given this account. A lot of people have asked you to tell them what you saw and what you heard.
Yes, many times.
In fact, would you acknowledge that there have been some heated conversations between you and TBI and law enforcement.
There have been.
They've confronted you, correct?
They have.
They've told you we don't understand why you didn't go out there.
Definitely.
They told you they're frustrated that you couldn't identify the person.
Yes.
But have you always told the truth?
I have.
Do you regret what you didn't do that morning?
Yes, I do.
If you had had more information, if you had known for certain that Drew was out hunting, if you had recognized that voice as a stranger's, if you had seen not just a man walking into the woods, but another man and another, what would you have done?
I would say that everything would be different and we wouldn't be here today.
But that's something you live with. Right.
If I had had more information, I would have definitely reacted to the situation differently.
So did you love your sister?
Yes.
That's right.
Mr. Bobo, my name is Jennifer Thompson, and I represent Zach Adams.
Okay.
I'd like to ask you a few questions this afternoon. You've given multiple statements in this case.
I have.
And you gave a statement on the same day that your sister disappeared.
I did.
Or multiple statements, actually.
Several statements that day.
One of the statements you gave was to FBI Special Agent Art Viveros. Do you remember Mr. Viveros?
Yes.
And so that was a statement that you made very close in time to when the event occurred.
I don't recall.
When your sister disappeared.
Yes, I don't recall the time of that, but I did sit down and talk to Mr. Arthur that morning, just after my sister was taken.
Okay. And at that time, you said that initially you had received a call at 7:33 in the morning from Chad Marshall. Do you remember?
I remember Chad calling that morning. I don't remember the exact time, but I was asleep, and I just simply picked my phone up and silenced the call and went back to sleep.
Okay. And it wasn't until about 7:40 that you woke up because your indoor dog was barking.
Sometime around that time, that's correct.
Yes. And you were up for a few minutes. You said you were up for about 10 minutes when you heard the voices from the carport. Do you remember saying that?
Not really.
Okay. You told him that at first you thought people were trying to break into your house.
I don't remember telling anyone that.
Okay. Do you remember telling him that you walked to the windows that face the carport? You pushed out the Venetian blinds. You pushed them open and observed two people squatting down.
I do.
Okay. You could only see the tops of their heads. Is that right?
The tops of their heads and maybe the top portion of their shoulder, I think, is what I told them.
Okay. And the female had blonde hair.
Yes.
But you weren't sure who they were because you couldn't see their faces.
Right.
One of them sounded male and seemed to be giving orders to the female.
That's right.
Okay. They both sounded white.
Yes.
By that, I'm assuming you're just talking about kind of the intonation in their voices.
Yeah, Mr. Arthur and some of the other FBI agents and TBI agents asked me if I knew the ethnicity of the person that I heard.
The female seemed to be agreeing with what the man was telling her to do.
That's right.
Okay. And you thought it was Holly, but it didn't quite sound like her.
I don't remember saying that.
Okay. And you assumed at that time that the male must have been Holly's boyfriend.
Yes, I did.
Even though you didn't go outside, it was an odd enough situation that you called your mother.
Yes.
Okay. And you then, when you couldn't reach her, you texted her.
That's right.
Okay. When you couldn't hear the voices outside any longer, that's when you looked out the kitchen window and saw people walking towards the woods. Isn't that right?
The kitchen door, that's correct.
Okay. Okay, the glass window in the kitchen. If you said glass window in the kitchen, you would have meant the door with a window in it.
That's right.
Okay. And as you looked at the woman, it looked like the size and shape of Holly. Is that right?
That's correct.
And do you remember what she was wearing?
She was wearing a pink t-shirt and blue jeans.
Okay. And again, you assumed still at that point that the male was Drew.
I did.
Drew Scott, the boyfriend. And you thought that the reason that they were going into the woods was because Drew had shot a turkey and he was taking Holly to go see a turkey.
I thought that was a possibility at that time, yes.
Okay. And so there was nothing about the way they were walking that alarmed you at that time.
That is correct.
There were some perhaps reports that she was being dragged into the woods, but you didn't see any evidence that she was being dragged into the woods.
That's right, and those reports were false.
If you had seen your sister being dragged into the woods, you would have jumped into action.
That's correct.
Okay. And the man, you said, had on camouflage pants, a camouflage shirt, and a hat.
To the best of my memory, I think that he had on a lot of camouflage. I know I reported full camouflage, but he did have on camouflage.
Okay. Do you happen to remember what the camouflage pattern was?
At first, I remember it appeared to be Mossy Oak Breakup.
Okay. Because actually, there's different companies. Mossy Oak is a company of camouflage, and each company has different camouflage patterns that they use.
Right.
Okay. And Mossy Oak, you said Mossy Oak Breakup.
That's correct.
And that would be a camouflage pattern you might use if you were going turkey hunting.
That's right.
Okay. And you said at first you thought that. Upon further reflection, did you decide it might be something else?
Yes, I did say that it could have been leafy wear, which is something that turkey hunters wear.
Okay. Was it just that it was too far away for you to really determine?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And you said you thought that you saw in the person's right hand something that looked to you like a turkey call.
Yes, I think I described it as maybe a deer grunt call.
A deer grunt call?
That's right.
And what would that look like?
It's a black pipe, plastic pipe that's about 7 or 8 inches long, and it has like a flexible end on it.
Okay. And how do you make noises with it? Do you move it around?
No, you blow through it.
Okay. You'll excuse me just 1 minute. I get nervous too and I get a dry mouth. Okay, and so
You know, the light.
Oh, sorry.
Don't mouth well enough. I tried mouthing it.
No, not there. On the
Move my
side.
lips.
On the side. There. That's good. That's
All
fine.
right, thank you.
now that morning, you had parked your car in the garage that day, and that was somewhat unusual. Is that right?
I had backed my pickup truck in the detached garage, and that was somewhat unusual because that parking spot was unavailable for a few months prior to that night.
It had been full with things.
Yes, my dad had a project car that he was working on, and he had the car on one side and parts and tools on the other side.
Okay, so if somebody had been observed, that was the first night you had parked your car in the garage for a while?
That's right.
So if somebody had been observing the house, on other occasions they would have seen your car outside.
Yes.
And that night the garage door to the detached garage was closed also, wasn't it?
That's correct.
So you wouldn't have been able to see your truck.
That's right.
Right? So if somebody had been watching your house for a while, they might have assumed that you were not there.
That is a possibility.
And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, that spring of 2011, you were gone before Holly in the morning. Isn't that right?
On some days I was.
Yes. Now, do you remember also telling law enforcement that the person's hair, that you could see the man had dark hair sticking out from under his cap?
At some point in time I do. Yes, remember that.
And you had said that the dark hair was long enough that it appeared to be touching the man's collar or down on his collar.
To cover his neck, that's correct.
To actually cover his neck even?
Yes.
Okay. And then, in fact, you had also described the man's voice.
Yes.
You described it as a very deep, low voice,
yes.
didn't you? Okay. And at some point, Terry Dicus brought you voice samples of different people's voices.
He did.
And you were able to narrow the voice samples down to 2 different voices.
I believe that's correct.
And to you, the 2 samples of voices sounded identical.
Yes, they sounded very similar.
You couldn't distinguish one man's voice from the other.
Yes.
Okay. And one of those men's voices was Terry Britt's voice, wasn't it?
That's what the TBI indicated, yes.
Okay. At some point along the line, you retained an attorney to represent you, didn't you?
Yes, as well. He was a family. We attained an attorney to represent our family, to give us some family guidance, because our family's never really been involved in any kind of court issues.
Yes, and it was a new and different situation to you.
Yes.
But he actually accompanied you when you were questioned by law enforcement, didn't he?
He later did.
Yes. And law enforcement put great pressure on you to change your story, didn't they?
They did.
They continually accused you of lying.
Yes.
And they continually said that you were somehow holding back on some kind of information.
Withholding information, yes.
And they again stressed again and again that they would never be able to solve the crime unless you would come forward and tell everything you know.
That's correct. To me, that meant that I was the one that could solve the crime.
Right, and you can't solve this crime, can you? No.
No.
I mean, it wouldn't have mattered to you in this situation if in the beginning you had told some kind of fib. In order to get your sister back, you would have admitted to that right away, wouldn't you have?
Admitted to if I had previously lied?
If you had previously lied, or if you had been confused initially.
Yes, I would have admitted the truth, yes.
You would have done anything to get your sister back, wouldn't you have?
I would not have lied.
No, but you would have admitted fault on your own.
Oh, yes.
You would not have tried to protect yourself and kept yourself from getting in trouble if it meant hindering the search for your sister, would you?
That's correct.
Okay. If I can have one moment. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Anything else?
Just real quick, Judge. Just about law enforcement pressuring you to like change your statement or something.
Do you understand the difference between somebody confronting you about what you said?
I do.
About telling you that if it was them, they would have rushed out there and either they'd be dead or that man would be dead?
I heard something like that numerous times, yes.
Again and again they confronted you with that?
Yes.
And again, you've told them the truth?
Yes, all that I know.
And every time you tell them what they know, what does law enforcement do? They write it down.
Yes.
They write it down. They ever try to change what you're saying?
No, they didn't change what I was saying. They just wanted me to add more and give them more and give them more.
They're doing their job.
Yeah.
They confronted you and confronted you and confronted you. And then they wrote down or wrote memos or recorded or whatever it was every time what you said.
Yes.
They never made up lies that you said.
No.
They never had you sign statements that weren't true.
No.
You saw a black, what'd you call it again? I don't hunt very much.
The
What'd you see in his hand?
The object in his hand. It appeared to be a deer grunt call.
Because it was black?
It was black, and it looked like it was just kind of a matte black, and it looked like it was about 7 or 8 inches long, like a pipe or a tube.
Did you make any assumptions that's what it was because he was in camouflage and he was walking in the woods?
Yes, I believe that's good. And of course, he was a pretty good ways away from me as well.
A very good ways. You saw the picture.
Yeah.
Could that have been a gun?
It could have been.
Your Honor, I object to this speculation. I'd ask to strike that.
No, he said, could it have been? He said it could. That's not speculation. It's just voice of opinion. Objection overruled. None?
Passwords.
Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right, step in. Let's take a recess. We're last evening recess. Violence will let me know when everyone's finished resting, and then we'll go a little further into the evening yet. Oh, you're next.
John Babb.
Get up there. Raise your right hand, sir. Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. Be seated. State your name and spell first and last name for the court reporter, please.
John Babb, John-B-A-B-B.
Thank you, sir. All right, proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Babb.
Ma'am.
I'm going to ask you to speak up. You're a little soft-spoken, and it's sort of hard to hear in here. So
That mic is hot if you need to get a little closer to it.
not asking what your address is, but where do you currently live?
Collierville,
And where's Collierville?
Collierville, Tennessee.
And is that close to Memphis?
Yes,
All right. And prior to moving to Collierville, where did you live?
in Lexington, Tennessee.
All right. And prior to living in Lexington, where did you live?
Kansas City.
At some point in there, did you have a house or property on Swan Johnson Road?
I did. I did not live there. I just owned the property there.
And what kind of property did you own? A house, a lake, what?
150 acres, mostly woods, five lakes, recreational property.
And I asked you whether it was close to Swan Johnson Road. Actually, was it right off of Swan Johnson
Right
Road?
on Swan Johnson Road on the east side.
All right. Are you familiar with the family last name Bobo?
Very much so.
Karen Bobo, Dana Bobo, Clint?
Certainly.
And Holly?
And Holly.
Do you recall approximately when you met their families?
They were probably the first family I met when I bought that property.
And when was that?
2004.
And having bought that property in 2004, did you basically watch Clint and Holly grow up?
I did.
Did you ever do any business with Dana, or did he do some work for you or around your lakes?
A great deal. He had heavy equipment, and I needed a lot of heavy equipment work done on the lake property. We worked together for about 10 years.
And how much interaction did you have with Holly?
Every now and then, I would see her whenever I went over to their house. In fact, she rode her horse on our property from time to time.
And she rode her horse with your permission, I assume?
Yeah, sure.
You said you didn't live there. Did you go there frequently or infrequently?
About 3 times a week.
Was there a place for you to spend the night when you wanted to?
There's a small cabin on the place.
And I want to draw your attention, please, sir, to April the 13th of 2011 and ask you, do you remember that morning?
I do.
Had you spent the night in your cabin there on Swan Johnson the night before?
No.
How specifically do you remember that morning?
I was to go fishing with a good friend of mine who had come in from Atlanta. We spent the night at my home in Lexington, came there the next morning. I remember we were running a little bit late, 30. Went down to the house. I had to rig up or put a boat on the trailer and then hook up the trailer, get our fishing gear together. I showed my buddy a boat that I had built over the winter. Then we went over to a lake, some 300 or 400 yards away from the cabin.
So all of the activity that you described, when you said at the time you went through the gate, that was on that property?
Yes.
The gate to your cabin and to your lake, the ponds and lakes?
Yes.
Okay. You sort of have given us some specific time frames. Are you a person that makes note of detail based on your history, your work history, your career?
I had to do that for many years, yes.
And just so the jury understands why you might be a person that pays attention, what was your career?
I worked for the U.S. Surgeon General. I was an Assistant Surgeon General and Rear Admiral in the Public Health Service.
Right, and attained you were a Rear Admiral, weren't you?
Yes.
And when did you retire?
2010.
So this point, this April of 2011 was really shortly after your retirement. You're
Yes.
enjoying yourself, being able to go fishing in the middle of the week?
Indeed.
Okay. Now, to go back to, you entered the gate, you said around 7:30?
Around 7:30,
Okay.
yes.
And how much time did you spend getting things ready, getting the boat on the trailer? And
I would say probably 20 minutes. Then we rode over to the lake. My buddy is a little bit decrepit, and I had my stuff ready to go. He wasn't quite ready yet. He was gathering his stuff together. I was standing on the levee of the lake. He was down next to the boat at the lake surface there trying to get his stuff ready. And that's why I saw what I saw and he didn't see it.
all right. And so that the jury understands, I guess, the layout, if you were standing where you were on the levee and looked back towards the road, what could you see? Could you actually see Swan Johnson Road?
Yes, for about maybe a 50, 60-yard swath of road there, yeah.
And you said that he was not your buddy, and was that Mr. Williams?
Bob Williams, yes. Uh-huh.
He was not able to see what you did because of where he was.
Right.
Okay. What did you see?
Well, first I heard something, a motor revving up loudly on the road. I looked over and a white truck came by extremely fast, probably faster than any vehicle I've seen on that road before or since, probably traveling 55, 60 miles an hour. And I turned to my buddy and said, "Man, that white truck was flying." Of course, he didn't see it. That was the end of that conversation.
Were you able, other than making the observation that it was a white truck and going fast, were you able to make any other observations about that truck?
I thought it was an extended cab truck.
Okay.
But I...
Did you think that it may have been a Ford as well?
I thought it may have been a Ford, but then it was 250 yards or so away, so I couldn't tell for sure.
When you reported what you saw, though, you reported those things, that you thought it was an extended cab and you thought it was a Ford.
Yes.
And Mr. Hagerman just reminded me to ask, and I'm glad he did, was it a pickup truck?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
An actual pickup truck.
Yes.
Other than hearing the truck, and let me ask you which direction it was going, and we have a map.
That truck was going south. And just at the very north end of the Bobo property and my property, Swan Johnson turns into a gravel road. So I find it inconceivable that somebody could have been going that speed with any, that made any sense whatsoever after coming off that gravel road, unless they were in one heck of a hurry. That's why it drew my attention.
Got your attention. In addition to hearing and then seeing the white pickup truck, did you hear some noises shortly before that you thought were cats fighting?
I did. Two of the neighbors owned quite a few cats, and when I heard it, I thought that sounded like a couple of cats fighting, and it was off towards the Bobo house. My buddy, who is actually a cat person, said, "Nah, I don't think that was cats," but that was all we heard, and we didn't figure that out.
Did you hear what you thought at the time were cats fighting, two cats fighting, before or after you saw the car speeding past?
Well, I heard that as soon as we got to the lake, so it was before the car.
So you heard was it screeching or yelling or crying or?
A screech or a squall, like I say, I thought it was cats.
But your buddy told you it wasn't?
Right.
Do you remember when you were kind enough to let me come to your home and talk to you about what you saw and heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and in telling me, describing for me the layout of your property and the Bobos, did you hand draw a map?
Yes, I did.
Let me pass that forward to you. And Your Honor, the defense has it.
Got a copy?
And do you recognize that?
Yes, ma'am.
And does that map, to the best of your ability, truly and accurately reflect sort of the layout of the road, the land, the Bobos that morning?
It's a crude map, but yes. Yeah.
Your Honor, asked this be marked as the next number to exhibit.
Should be 36, I think. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I'm going to pass you a pointer. Here's if you'll look over your left shoulder.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Especially on this one, it's a little whole thing on there.
Give us just a second to get the
The writing.
pretty quick study. It's 5 o'clock on Monday. We've learned how to get the lights down.
Other way. All right, Mr. Babb, you have to tell me, is it focused enough for you to point out the writing or not? I can't tell.
It's hard to make out the writing.
Okay.
This point right here is the levee on the lake where I was standing. Right in here is where I saw this truck speeding, coming from that direction, and I saw the lake for that time period right in here.
Where do the Bobos live?
There.
And what distance, if you had to tell us, down the road from the Bobos to where you saw the car?
Well, from there to there, I would say 150, 200 yards.
150 to 200 yards. And the area on here where you believe you heard two cats fighting or screaming, where did that sound come from?
Generally in this direction here. This lady here had cats, and there was a man that lived here who had 60 cats.
Oh, wow.
62 actually. So.
But the sound wasn't from where he lived.
No, it wasn't coming from that direction. It was back over in here.
Let me ask you, and tell me if either way, is it a possibility that what you heard were voices or high-pitched screaming as opposed to cats?
It was.
I'm going to object to the speculation.
The question's proper, overruled.
Let me ask that question again. Is it a possibility that the sounds you heard that morning was someone crying or screaming as opposed to cats fighting?
I didn't think of it in that terms whenever I heard it. I wish I had under the circumstances, but no, I didn't think of it that way, but it's certainly possible that it was.
Now, this information that you shared with the jury, at what point did you tell someone in law enforcement what you had seen regarding that white, possibly Ford extended cab pickup?
Well, the first thing that happened that I knew anything had gone on over there was that Dana.
With the map.
Yes, sir.
All right, lights up.
Dana Bobo called me. I'm not sure, somewhere around 9 o'clock.
That morning or that evening?
That morning, to ask me what the age requirement to report what's the Amber Alert, what the age requirement was for an Amber Alert. And I said, I think it's 21, but I'm not sure. And then he said, well, Holly's been taken.
I'm sorry, there was a thump. Holly's been what?
He said, Holly has been taken.
Okay.
And he tried to explain what was going on. And so, well, I said, he said, are you at the lake? And I said, yeah. And so I then stopped fishing, went to all of the buildings on the property there to be sure that nobody had come over there to our side of the road. And then I went directly over to Swan Johnson Road, walked up to his house. There were police cars, etc., all up and down the road. And I talked to the sheriff of Decatur County and the sheriff of Henderson County, who were together on the roadway there, and told them what I'd seen. And directly somebody from Homeland Security and the FBI came over to the cabin and talked to me. And then later on that evening, they asked me to come to the command trailer, and I spoke to them again there.
So from within, I guess, an hour and a half or so after you heard and saw this, you were taking steps to report it?
Yes, but I didn't know there was anything to report until Dana's telephone call. Right.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any further questions.
Cross.
No further questions. No questions.
Thank you, Mr. Babb. You're free to go, or you can be in the courtroom with us.
Thank you.
Call your next.
Tony Weber.
Raise your right hand, sir. Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir, I do.
Be seated. State your name and spell your first and last name for the court recorder.
Tony Weber, Tonyweber.
Thank you. You can proceed.
Mr. Weber, I want to recall your attention back to April of 2011, okay?
Yes, sir.
Where were you working back then?
Decatur County Sheriff's Office.
And how long were you a deputy there?
In law enforcement in Decatur County, approximately 15 years.
15 years.
Yes, sir.
Now you got a new job, though, right?
Yes, sir.
Got a new, better job.
Yeah.
Make a little more money. Right?
Yes, sir.
April 13th, 2011, did you have occasion to respond to the crime scene on Swan Johnson?
Yes, sir, I did.
Tell me how that came about.
That morning we were leaving, or I was leaving the high school. I'd been working traffic patrol, just trying to deter speeders through a school zone. After that, I had went to 911 dispatch center and was made aware of the call. I then responded emergency traffic to the Swan Johnson Road address.
You responded emergency traffic, is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Does that mean fast?
Lights and siren, yes, sir.
Lights and sirens.
Yes, sir.
Was it just you or was anybody with you?
It was just me in my car.
Tell us what you saw when you arrived there.
When I arrived at the address, as I was pulling in the driveway, I noticed two people standing in front of a residence. One was later identified as Clint Bobo. The other was a neighbor. I believe her name was Kathy Wise.
Okay. So you pull up that long driveway at Swan Johnson, lights and sirens, and you see Clint Bobo and the neighbor, female.
Yes.
What'd you do?
I exited my vehicle. I went up and was kind of trying to determine what was going on, if a crime had occurred, or the nature of the call, what exactly had been going on.
This call was some type of kidnapping call, right?
They said that Holly Bobo had been taken, or a female had been taken into the woods.
That doesn't happen every day.
No, sir.
Did you talk to Clint Bobo?
I did.
Did he give you a brief version of what was going on?
Yes, sir. He said that somebody in camouflage had taken his sister into a wooded area behind and to the right of the house from where we were.
So what do you do in response to that?
We began to walk towards the area where he had said that his sister was taken into the woods.
Who's waiting?
Mr. Bobo and I. Okay. I don't remember at that time whether the neighbor had come with us.
Gotcha.
We started walking back through there and just generally asking him questions. Are you sure, this is what happened? Are you sure there's nothing going on? I actually asked him, I said, are you sure she didn't get a ride to school? Because I believe he had made comment that she was supposed to be going to college that morning. And I asked him, are you sure she didn't get a ride? He was sure she did not get a ride to school. Kept saying that she was taken into the woods.
Okay.
I asked to see where her vehicle was. At some point, we ended up over near her Mustang in the carport.
What did you see in the carport?
That's when I noticed there was blood spatter and a puddle of blood on the floor.
This is previously marked Stacy Civic number 27. Let me show you 28 first. Mr. Weber. You recognize that?
Yes, sir. It appears to be the carport of the Bobo's residence.
And was that car there?
Yes, sir, it was.
It's her car. Is this the blood you're talking about?
It appears to be, yes, sir. It's in the general location for sure.
And I got a close up of at least part of it. Is it 27? Right there at the base of the steps, right?
Yes, sir.
Things were serious.
At that point, I realized it was more serious than I was first made aware, yes, sir.
first made aware of it or expected?
Expected, I guess. Well, I guess just the demeanor of the persons when I first encountered. I wasn't expecting to find a scene of that magnitude or that of that nature.
Around frantically.
No, sir, they were not.
Were other law enforcement there about the time you found the blood?
I believe I don't know exactly what time, but I do know that Deputy Jeremy Pratt had arrived sometime therein, and also Ricky Inman with the sheriff's office had arrived sometime at that point.
Did you stay there for a little bit there at the house?
Initially, I did. When I found the carport, I had actually, at that point, tried to get Clint Bobo to write me out a statement, realizing how serious, hey, I need to get something on paper. I need to get some facts. Tell me what you saw for sure. Write it down.
Did you give him some paper?
I did.
Where you could write it down?
Yes, sir.
Other officers get there?
Yes, sir.
These other officers have various responsibilities?
Yes, sir.
Other people get there?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember Miss Karen getting there?
Yes, sir, I do. We spoke briefly in the front driveway. I believe I was coming back from roping off the area around the carport with sheriff's tape and met her in front. Again, it was brief. I started asking her specific questions about Holly, trying to get a little bit more information. I believe at that point is when I realized that she had her cell phone with her still.
Okay. The fact that she has her cell phone with her, or at least it's not there.
Yes, sir.
Does that mean something to you?
Yes, sir. That means that there's a good possibility that we can actually start using that data off of that to triangulate some sort of location.
Try to figure out where her cell phone is.
Correct.
And maybe that's where she is.
Correct.
And maybe we can go get it.
Right.
So what do you do?
I contacted our 911 system and asked them to contact the cell phone carrier so they can initiate the tracking of the phone.
Under certain circumstances, can law enforcement make contact with a cell phone provider like AT&T?
Yes, sir. Life and death situations, they can.
And was that process started?
Yes, sir, it was.
To complete that process, though, what did they need?
They needed a supervisor's signature.
So what'd you do?
I had to leave the residence and get to the 911 center so I could fax a copy of my signature and a letterhead so they would relay the information to me.
Lights and sirens again, or just plain old fax?
I'm sure I did, sir.
Did you sign that order, that paperwork, asking for this cell phone information?
Yes, sir, I did.
Now, when you ask for that sort of cell phone information, like from AT&T, how does it come to you?
They actually emailed it to my departmental email.
And in fact, AT&T that morning emails you several, what I'm going to say, nobody's asking about cell phone expertise or anything right now. They email you several pings of Holly's phone. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
In what sort of form? They don't send you a map with like a...
No, sir. It's a lot of numbers. Looks a lot more like longitude, latitude stuff.
Okay. And is that stuff you're trained in or not trained in?
I'm not trained in that, sir.
So what do you do when AT&T emails you all these numbers that's a cell phone ping?
We were relaying them to TBI agents, and also I believe Highway Patrol or Jackson PD had a helicopter in the area at that time, and we were relaying that to them.
So AT&T starts sending you pings from her phone. You start relaying that information to whoever you can.
Yes, sir.
But including TBI.
Yes, sir.
Do you actually go chasing these cell phone pings?
No, sir.
Okay, so what are your responsibilities once these cell phone pings start coming in?
My responsibilities at the time were to follow those until they stopped or until she was found.
Those pings stopped, and we'll hear testimony about it a few hours into that day.
Yes, sir.
Were you tasked later that day or during that day with going out and trying to investigate a little bit or try to talk to people a little bit?
Yes, sir. After we realized that there were no more pings coming through on the cell phone, I was given a job along with Deputy Jeremy Pratt to go and interview our local sex offenders throughout the county.
In your travels that day, you had to drive from place to place, I assume.
Yes, sir.
In any of those travels, first, do you know Zach Adams?
I do know Zach Adams.
Do you know Shane Austin?
I did know Shane Austin.
In your travels that day, from place to place or wherever to wherever, did you ever encounter Zach Adams?
No, sir, not that I recall. No, sir.
Would you recall?
I believe I would have recalled, but no, sir, I don't recall.
Did you ever encounter Shane Austin?
No, sir.
Did either Zach Adams or Shane Austin ever talk to you that day?
No, sir, not that I can recall.
Thank you, Mr. Weber.
Yes, sir.
Cross-examination.
Yes.
Hello, Mr. Weber. I'm Jennifer Thompson.
So you're the first officer on the scene that day.
Yes, ma'am.
And to be clear, you never walked back into the woods first thing looking for Holly, did you?
The initial thing? No.
Yes.
No, I did not.
Matter of fact, you had Clint Bobo come over and begin to fill out some paperwork.
We spoke briefly and walked around the house. Yes, ma'am.
So when you first got there, he was standing in the front of the house?
Clint Bobo, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did he tell you that there was some blood over in the carport?
I don't remember that ever coming out until we'd already made it around the house.
Okay. But you didn't see the blood yourself, did you?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Well, initially, when you made your first day report, you said you didn't see the blood but told Inman about it.
I don't know.
that?
No, ma'am, I don't. I don't know how I could have told him about it if I hadn't seen it.
Well, Clint told you, you told Inman.
No, ma'am, I don't believe that's right.
So you say you did walk over and look at the blood?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay. So you walked all the way through the carport to look at the blood?
No, I stepped into the carport without seeing a picture. There's a breezeway, I guess you could say, from the back porch area going over there, and you could see down in through there.
Okay. And you weren't the first person to put up tape that morning around the crime scene, were you?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Dana Bobo had already put up some pink ribbon to block off the carport, hadn't he?
Ma'am, Dana Bobo was not there when I got there.
Okay, so it's your testimony that you're the first person that put up crime scene tape around the carport?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay. How long after you arrived did it take for Mr. Officer Pratt to arrive?
Ma'am, I don't know.
Can you give us a guesstimate?
The 911 log would probably show. I honestly don't know.
Okay. So at what point did you walk back in the woods looking for Holly?
I don't know. It would have been after we, it might have been about the time that Karen and I had spoken up front, and I remember some of our last words. She hollered at me to find her daughter, so.
Okay, but she actually ran into the woods looking for Holly before you did, didn't she?
I don't know. I didn't see her do that, no.
You never saw Karen Bobo run into the woods?
No, ma'am.
Now, Karen Bobo got there after you got there, didn't she?
She did.
Okay. And so that's something you did not observe that morning?
No, ma'am. I did not see her do that.
Okay. So you think that you maybe walked into the woods after Karen Bobo arrived?
I don't know. I never saw her go into the woods, so I couldn't tell whether she did after I had been or not.
Okay, so when you walked into the woods, did you run through the woods, or did you just
No,
walk?
ma'am. No, ma'am. It wasn't a run. We walked through the woods.
Okay, and what did you observe?
Honestly, we were looking for any sort of blood trail at that point because I'd already noticed the blood in the carport. I was looking for any sort of disturbances that I might find, potentially even her.
Okay, so when you say disturbance, what were you looking for disturbance-wise?
Disturbances in the leaves, drag marks through dirt, anything like that.
Did you find anything like that?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Did you take any photographs as you were walking through the woods?
I don't recall having taken any photographs, no, ma'am.
So when you walked through the woods, how long did you walk and where did you come out?
I come out on, it may have been Swan Johnson Road. I believe it cuts right through there.
And did you take any pictures of the logging road that was back in there?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Okay. So did you make any kind of observations about tire prints or tire tracks back in there?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Okay. When you were walking around in the carport area, did you have any kind of booties on or anything to prevent you from leaving footprints?
I didn't walk through the carport. I walked up to the threshold of the door.
How about when you were walking on the trail? Did you do anything to prevent yourself from leaving footprints?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Did you do anything to try to preserve footprints that were on the trail?
I didn't observe any footprints on the trail.
Did you put out any kind of information about getting a roadblock?
No, ma'am, I don't recall doing that.
Okay. Did you send out messages that somebody should go and start checking roads or intersections?
Not that I recall, no, ma'am.
Okay. So when you finally called and started to get the pings, you didn't call to get the first ping and get the paperwork in until just a few minutes before 9 o'clock. Isn't that right?
I don't remember. I remember calling Henderson County Sheriff's Office for some assistance. I believe they had a tracking dog. That was during the time I was at the house also, but to say at what point that was during the whole ordeal that morning, I couldn't specify a time.
So that's just a detail you don't remember today?
Excuse me?
That's a detail you don't remember today?
The time?
The time that you got you started to get the first ping?
No, I'm sure it's documented, the time of the first ping.
Do you have that documentation with you today?
No, ma'am, I don't. They collected all of my case file, anything that I was involved with, the TBI picked up.
So you don't even have your case file with you?
No, ma'am.
In order to testify today, did you review the case file?
No, ma'am, I have not.
So when was the last time you reviewed the case file?
About the last time I was involved with it, before the TBI took it, I'm sure.
And the TBI, did they take it that very day?
It was within the first early days of it, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you're saying it's been a good 7+ years since you reviewed the materials?
No, ma'am, it's 6 years.
Okay, 6 years since you reviewed the material, sorry.
Yeah, it's probably not been exactly 6, but it's getting pretty close.
Okay, if I were to tell you that the first ping came in at 8:56 and you actually got a no hit back on the first ping, would that refresh your memory on that?
It wouldn't mean anything to me, ma'am. I don't know anything about what all that data and what all that pinging is supposed to do. I know that they're supposed to be able to use that information to triangulate a location off of it. Somebody way smarter than I am.
If I were to tell you the second ping came in at 8:57, would that refresh your memory on that?
No, ma'am.
And that there actually was a hit on the 8:57 ping? You recognize that you're the person that told AT&T you fill out a form and mail it into a fax number, isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am, an exigent circumstances form.
Okay. And it's actually a kind of a warrant saying we have emergency circumstances and we believe that if you can give us the location of this ping, we can stop a crime in progress or save a life.
Yes, ma'am.
Those are kind of the two exigent circumstances that they need to do a ping.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you're the person, you've already testified, that filled out the paperwork to get that ping and faxed it over.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you do remember that the AT&T call that you made was recorded on the 911 system, right?
I'm sure it is. All the 911 lines are recorded.
And AT&T actually asks you, how often do you want to get a ping back on the phone? Do you remember that they asked you that?
No, I don't remember the specifics of the conversation.
Do you remember you telling them you just would get one every 15 minutes?
I don't remember that.
Did you recognize it would have been possible to get one every 1 minute?
No, I did not know that.
Okay. So after this happened, you were assigned the job of going around and looking for the sex offenders that day?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a memory that there's over 90 sex offenders that lived within a short distance of the Bobo home?
I remember there's several. To say a specific number, ma'am, honestly, I had a yellow legal pad, and it was full of people that we made contact with, so.
Okay. But several is different than saying it was close to 100.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember the specific number, ma'am, but I know it was a lot.
Okay. And you were given, they actually kind of just set you up on a road, and you kind of started on one road and started just going in order. Isn't that right?
No, ma'am. Deputy Pratt and I decided that we would start closest to the Bobo residence and start working a spiral grid outward from that.
Okay, I'm sorry, but what I meant was you had a list of where everybody lived and what their address was, and you were going in address order when you were checking on people.
I was not going in address order. I was going in proximity to the Bobo home.
Okay. Maybe I'm not phrasing it. You weren't doing it alphabetically. You started at the Bobo home, and you were kind of moving from house to house, getting further away.
I would say that's correct, yes.
Okay. And so, do you have a memory now that one of the people that you were to check on was a man named Eric Christensen who lived on Jeanette Holiday Road, 2700 Jeanette Holiday Road?
I'm sure we did. I don't remember his specific name. No, ma'am.
Okay. So what you're saying now is you have absolutely no memory of that?
I remember speaking to a lot of people that day, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, Your Honor, if I could take a few minutes, I'd like to pull together some of the materials I have from his case file so that I can hand it up to him, see if it refreshes any of his memory. I didn't know that he was going to be called today, so I don't have my materials ready. I just got I was just told he was being called a few minutes ago.
How long will it take you?
It's probably going to take me about 15 minutes. I do have significant more questions to ask him once I can get his memory refreshed on some of the materials.
Let's break for the evening at this point, then. We'll continue tomorrow. I want you to be ready to go like that. Okay?
It is difficult when I don't know which witnesses are going to be called in advance, Your Honor.
The order in which they call their witnesses is up to them. If you call witnesses, the order in which you call is up to you. I want our bailiffs to be apprised so that they can kind of have them in waiting. Okay? 5:30. You folks are going to have to get settled in so it won't hurt us to break for the evening. They'll feed you. Not going to identify by name, but we've got one of our jurors that has a birthday on Thursday. I want that juror to be treated very favorably on the birthday, okay? And like I say, I'm not going to identify who it is. The Sheriff's Department will know that.
We may have a birthday tomorrow.
There's one tomorrow.
Oh, there's one tomorrow? Maybe I had the wrong date. All right. Mine's Friday, okay? I'll still be here Friday. But the birthday's tomorrow. I want her to be treated special, okay? All right, your admonitions, don't just put this out of your mind as best you can, okay? Do not form or express an opinion. Keep an open mind on the case until you're instructed to do so. Do not discuss the case with anyone, not even your fellow jurors, until the case is submitted to you for your final consideration. Do not allow the case to be discussed in your presence. Ignore any news reports. Avoid conversations with parties, witnesses, or attorneys, and promptly report any violations of these rules to the court. The jury may now be excused. You can leave your notebook in the seat. Courtroom will be secured overnight.